idea of who's been here, who's getting what trainings in. So the topic today is focused on, we had some feedback requesting information about, you got the listing, what do you do next? And we're not going to go through, because you've already got segments previously on listing presentations and that kind of stuff. So it's this point forward, and then we're going to focus on that. Rather than and stop near where we're not going to take you through the point of if you get an offer on your listing, what do you do, what forms to use, counter offers, the things to consider, because that's another training subject, if that makes sense. So thank you for coming today, and we're going to tag team, Becky and I, and what I'd like to suggest is I'm going to go ahead and do an overview, kind of give you an idea of the things we're going to talk about, and emphasize some things that we're seeing that are commonly overlooked or mistakes being made, which cause not only difficulties for yourself, but also staff and effectively marketing, causing your listing to sell. So with that in mind, take some good notes, I think, and the things that you will see us be repetitive on will actually be areas of emphasis. So with that in mind, so you got the listing. This may be a form of you're at the seller's house and you didn't know for sure if you were going to get the listing, but they were impressed with your presentation. And they said, Terry, I want to go with you. And Terry asked, well, how quickly would you like to activate and put this on the market? Some people will say as soon as yesterday. So come prepared, whether or not you're on a one-step or two-step listing presentation. Hopefully Annette has covered that when she's gone through. I know I covered it at the Treated CNA class. If you have a chance to do a two-step listing presentation, that being come out for 30 minutes, kind of get an idea of what the house is, thank you, what are your objectives, Mr. Seller, and then come back tomorrow to roll this out to you, a little more detail. I'll show you market analysis, all that kind of thing. If you don't have a chance to do a two-step process or one-step, you said, I've already interviewed two people, I'm going to make a decision tonight. You don't have a choice. The dilemma that puts you in, as you know, is you and I have not seen the property, and therefore we have to make some assumptions. And then what our fear is, you get out there and you find out that there's all kind of amenities or repair conditions that you hadn't taken into consideration when you did the CMA. And then, particularly a new affiliate, you get scared. You're thinking, geez, I was prepared to go ahead and recommend this listing price based upon the CMA. And now I didn't realize you have privacy fifth. I didn't realize within the past year you spent $50,000 and put an in-ground pool in. You go through all that dissertation, see how, and I could see it's already going to be stressful as a new affiliate anyway. So we're beyond that. But the point I'm getting to is what things do you need to have in your vehicle in case that person wants to have you move quickly. So most of you are going to have your notebook or laptop, and in some cases you may have an inclination that you may be getting the listing, and Becky later will show you how to set up to pre-populate some fields in Outlook, and that will save you some time. Auto-populate some of the fields, starting with the listing agreement form and so forth. A little quicker for you to do it. Now keep in mind there's some sellers that do not use the technology that we're using. And then, so in some respects, particularly like what happened the other day, Jennings, battery goes dead on a laptop or whatever, you might want to have a folder with hard copies of some of the documents going to be. And that's what I was had with me as well, because you never know that you might have to go ahead and have it filled out in ink and then upload all this stuff later on. So with that in mind, the documents that a seller will be filling out, or you'll be filling out, we're going to try to clarify what things are going to be uploaded in MLS and available to the public and other agents, and also what things should not be uploaded. And specifically, hey, make sure you all sign in. Glad to have you all. So as you see, Becky's been kind enough to go ahead and pull over. In Outlook, you've got the staff has already done a good job segmenting residential sales packet, residential listing packet. So you can go ahead and pull over listing packet, but you'll see a lot of documents that you may or may not use. In fact, there's more documents that typically would be required, typically, and I haven't done it recently, but one of the first things you'll need is the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. And just a little comment that that is a document that you will not place in MLS. That's a confidential between brokerage and the seller. So that is something that some new affiliates make a mistake on. And if you recall, 2/3 of the page down on the MLS listing input form, where it has the buyer broker commission, whatever filled in, facilitator filled in, is the listing brokerage commission available on that page? The answer is no. That's one thing that is not available to the public or agents. Care less. Make sure you sign that attendance sheet. Those are just not coming in. The other thing I'll point out, we'll go through when we fill out the forms in detail, but you don't want to have blanks, whether it be on a listing agreement form or put your sale agreement form, and just put NA, not applicable. Another one that we'll be coming to is confirmation of agency status. And just to highlight, when we pull up the sheet, we'll cover this again. We recognize designated agency here. So if you check off agent for the seller, that is not what we want you to do. It's designated agent. Well, what's the difference? The difference is that if you get in a car wreck, you think of Christina Juke in Shelbyville when she had a rollover car accident, and she was out of commission. So the brokerage can and will assign her clientele, or if it happened to you, to someone else in their office, so that the clients are serviced during the time that an agent, the listing agent, designated agent, is out of commission. Also, we've got the designated agency allows you to default to be a facilitator. Remember that in that listing agreement form. The thing to keep in mind on Sunday is to go ahead and have him sign that too. We want to make sure that the other point on that is to, if you ever get a chance to have an unrepresented buyer, they want you to write an offer because you met them at an open house. Because even though the listing agreement covers that, the seller's giving you permission to default to be a facilitator, you must reaffirm that at the time. So that's another thing that we'll cover when we look at the document. Another that Becky's pulled over is disclaimer notice. That's that 3-page form, which is a COIA form. That's going to be very helpful in the event that those things are outside your control. Can you and I control somebody filing a complaint against you for your actions as an agent, representative, seller, client? The answer is no. We can't prevent them. And the phrase buyers are liars, or there is some truth to that because people either intentionally or unintentionally forget your verbal counseling to them or whatever. So that's a form that's really, don't forget, because it's going to be that much. The residential property condition disclosure, Hector, what we're talking about, there's only one. You select whatever's germane to your situation. Today, we're pretty much focused on an owner-occupied property, so you select a 5-page property condition disclosure we'll pull up. There may be situations where the seller asks Max, is it possible? I just want to go ahead and sell this as is. I've lived here for 10 years. The answer is yeah, there's a Form TAR form. It has that. If you have a seller who bought the house 6 months ago as a flip, you did some renovations after they closed, repairs, now they want you to go ahead and put it back on the market. They've never lived in the property 3 or more years. You pull out the seller's residential property condition disclosure, which is exempt, like a bank if they had a foreclosure. So again, select whichever is applicable, but only one. The mold disclaimer disclosure is really an extra form. So we'll go ahead and make you aware of it. And basically what that is, it was 17 or 18 years ago when I owned Select Realty and Select Real Estate Auction Company. I sat down with real estate attorney Jack Ridden. I said, it really bothered me because I've only had 2 agents in my real estate career that I was responsible for that ever got a lawsuit against them or a complaint. And both of them were frivolous. There was nothing the agent did wrong. There's one case, Peggy Winsky, who is a retired realtor now. She was a listing agent, and her seller complied with the requirement that the buyer had. It wasn't there. She wasn't a facilitator of defaulting, but a buyer had a home inspection done. They discovered mold and crawl space. Her seller agreed to spend the money to remediate. Had a third party do the work, and the buyer had a final walkthrough inspection. They had all the warranty papers, and warranted for a year, I think, or so. Everybody was happy. Closed 6 months out of the blue. I'll never forget this. I was in the office at the time. In comes a legal law enforcement type person issuing a subpoena for Peggy to appear in court, and because the buyer alleged that the mold had returned, and her seller and she as an agent were responsible. Well, that's crazy. I can't give you legal advice, Peggy, but based upon my review of all the details, you really don't have a problem here. But guess what? I said, if you remember, and she remembered, I started teaching this. One of the many exclusions on E&O insurance is what? Those of you that I taught in Tree's CNA class, one of those top 50 questions, environmental matters. You're not covered. You could do everything correctly and still get a complaint. You'll have to hire your own attorney. Now, Jack, being himself this kind of person, which I love him so well, he actually represented Peggy on the initial stage. He didn't charge her. You can't expect that from attorneys, I'll tell you that. So it was dismissed, as I knew it would be. Again, that's something to keep in mind. And so that form was devised, the last paragraph where we look at it, basically says that the moving party who files a complaint, if it did not have merit, they're responsible for paying Peggy's legal fees and brokers. Now, surprisingly, as an owner broker, normally I'm adjoined in a case like that, but I wasn't for some reason. But in that eventuality, E&O insurance would not have protected her or myself as a owner broker. And this little paragraph is further, it's got further impact to maybe sway somebody from not filing a complaint against you when they read that language. They really read the details. Geez, if I don't win this case, I'm going to have to pay the other side's legal fees, because we're not in a state that protects, like some states, frivolous complaints filed against you. Something to keep in mind. And just another point is just check. I've always, knowing that, I've always paid a little extra, whether it be life insurance or any other, to have a little limited liability protection for environmental matters. Mold, that's, whatever. But okay, with that in mind, the next thing is there's a survey waiver. I think we still have that's an optional form. They give us another CYA form. The closing transaction fee, and you'll notice the showing time appointment center. That seller, you're going to be reviewing with them. Hey, it's your home, but now the data that I'm going to put in as directions to the third party means showing time, which, by the way, is something that would be a plus for their consideration selecting you to begin with. There's some companies out there, and I used to work for a company where the brokers were responsible agents for handling all the showing requests. So if you're at the dinner table and you get an agent, Hector from one, let's say Hector was a different company and you're calling the listing agent, hey, can I have a showing for 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock this afternoon? You get all excited, you go ahead and say, well, you leave the dinner table and your wife, significant other, gives you the evil eye like I used to give, business, over family needs. And then you try to reach the seller, your seller as a listed agent, and they're not immediately available. So you go back for 5 minutes to try again, to try to barf down some food, and you're worried because you don't want to miss that in the buyer's market. That's showing, by the way, if that happened a year or two ago when we had 124 showings in 1 week, also listing in Laverne, there would be no way on one listing to have that many showings that if an agent had to do that. So that's one advantage that you could differentiate yourself from others that we use showing time and the value. But we're gonna go through a few things on, for example, showing time. In some, you still may have a multiple offer situation, but even I did not know or realize when we uploaded, faxed, or emailed the showing time instructions to them, there was like a 4 or 5 hour gap. And what happens is showing time said, we don't have any information, you need to call the listing agent. And it was really burdensome. I said, what do you mean? Call the agent. That wasn't what's in there. I said, go ahead and get a hold of the seller and request a showing approval. And you got to log into the showing time website, and then it's an instant access to the information you submitted. So we're going to cover more detail in the past because that is something that could be burdensome to you. Also, before we get into each document, what are the things to review and discuss with your sellers is things like, by the way, the showing instructions is not something you put in the MLS. And then key, and also you have double front doors. One thing I've learned through experience is always remind Mr. Seller, I noticed you've got a glass door in front of your front wooden door. And are you used to locking that when you go to work each day and so forth? Because if you do, my lockbox is going to be inside those 2 doors. And there's instances where if you don't remind the seller, you're going to have agents who get approval to show, get out there, and they can't even get to the lockbox. And it's something always to remind, just something that you pick up over years of experience in doing this. Even then, I had one case where they forgot. And I had to apologize to the buyer's agent and say that. I'm sorry, the seller just forgot. They were so used to habit-wise. But it was an inconvenience because they couldn't show they had a schedule to come back. Keys, don't make the mistake. You get that key that you're going to put inside your lockbox. By the way, strongly recommend the use of Century lockbox. Why? Because of E&O insurance. Yeah. How many of you have been to a show for buyers of yours, and the show instructions are, it's on a combo, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And you go to and it's already got 1, 2, 3, 4. The previous agent did not twirl it. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. So you can see why the insurance company.
And somebody can take it off once they open it. They can take it off, take it with them.
Yeah.
It might not even be an agent. It may be
Yeah.
something. You know.
So a lot of companies they have agents who go the cheap route, and you could save money. $20 to $25 for a combo lockbox. Do you want that liability? Now we don't require it, but strongly recommend for those reasons. It's worth. Those of you who are just starting up, recommend MTAR has the lockboxes that get you set up. Unless you are going to be a heavy lister initially. I had one time his dad was a developer. He had like 20 or 25 listings, and in this case it would be very, very expensive to buy that many lockboxes. But he phased down, so each of you probably should have at least 1 or 2 because you never know. It could be a Friday night, and that seller of yours decide to go with you. They say, how quickly can you go ahead and get it on the market? So, it's already 9 o'clock at night. We can go ahead and activate it tomorrow. And guess what? MTAR's office is not going to be open. And you don't want to come across kind of almost an embarrassment to you. And maybe you may be questioned for lack of professionalism when you don't have a lockbox to go ahead and do what they're asking you to do. And I almost got in trouble one time by loaning out a lockbox of mine. Century discovered something we had to do. They discovered that I loaned it out to one of the people I was coaching, and that's really a no-no. So try to have 1 or 2, and also your yard signs. Have the generic. Now that's something we can loan. Check with your sponsor if you don't have the cash to go ahead and buy. But even if you have 1 or 2 generic, and then go ahead and start ordering your individual name with cell phone name, so you put a sign writer in 1 or 2 slot. I always like to suggest you consider 2 slotted yard signs. You could have your name on 1 slot, and then maybe if home warranty is included or acreage or something, that you go ahead and embellish that. Other things, the listing input form, we've got pulled over listing input sheet to memo. That's required. Staff sees that. Also, another thing that's not on here, but just to make a note, something that many of you may recommend to a seller. If you have a seller that, well, how many spaces is allowable for the remarks section on wheel tracks? That's our marketing part, 255 each space. And what that means is, and why we have that exercise in the CNA class, trees, and I instruct that is, I say, go ahead and use your own house, you know your house better, go ahead and prepare an ad. Use an ad as if you're putting an ad in wheel tracks. You come back, and frankly, and it's a challenge. There's not a whole lot of things that you could say in 255 spaces, right? So bottom line is, Mr. Seller, you got so many amenities here, and you let them know that you're constrained on that aspect of marketing. Here's one thing I've learned I spent a lot of time and money to become the best real estate consultant, hopefully for life with you. And could you go ahead and either prepare handwritten bullet points of the things that you've improved your house on, and I'll type it up if you want to type it up, just a one-page deal, and then you upload that in the MLS. We did that on Cushing Avenue, $350,000. You had a Gatlinburg view, it had ADA accessible, 3 master bedroom suites. It just had ornate trim, things that may or may not translate to market value. But these are things that the seller really wanted to make sure people knew about, because it costs money for that stuff, right? So actually you'll find that when you ask the seller, at this point you've already got the listing, you probably already know, you might ask them, what are the things that attracted you to your house when you bought this house? And also having lived here, you've indicated you really liked your house. What are some of those things that you really like? Well, now that you think it's that quiet cul-de-sac, I don't have to worry because I got toddlers in my household and there's no traffic. I love the neighborhood and you might ask, well, what makes you love this neighborhood? Well, it's got, within a mile, we got shopping, we got school zone, excellent schools. I like the one level ranch style. By asking that question, what are they helping you do? That's exactly right. Well, if you incorporate some of those thoughts and ideas and phrases, if you agree with it, and they read it, they think, golly, that's a really good job. The bottom line is probably 90% of that ad is stuff that is on their mind. Now, you're probably going to be astute enough to pick up some other things that they didn't even think about, to go ahead and incorporate the rest of it. So don't overlook that tip. Also, you'll be wanting to ask at this early juncture, what are your feelings about open houses? Do you want me to do open houses for you? Believe it or not, there's some sellers who don't want to have open houses. I don't want people traipsing through my house. I don't want nosy neighbors coming through. And on the other hand, you got the other extreme. One of the conditions for you getting the award of their listing is you are willing to do in deference to other competing agents. They met with the team leader of a multi-million-dollar mega producing team. Why is it that you got the award? Because you turn that weakness in your mind, some of you are new affiliates, you turn that weakness into a strength. You didn't disparage by name the competing team that's trying to get that same listing, but oftentimes the team leader doesn't have the time to address this little, that he or she may be representing the builders, and the builders, they're beholden to the builder every weekend to do open houses for a builder, right? Or many times the homeowner does not realize the team leader is not going to be the one interfacing and communicating with the homeowner. Who is it? Some underling that probably you have more experience and training than the underling on the team. And therefore, you got the willingness to do the open houses that I had an agent one time that actually got the award just due to that one little point that they made during the listing presentation. So find out what the frequency is, because you want to under-promise, over-deliver. If you go ahead and promise to do certain things, but maybe just go a little above that, I think you'll find. Here's one thing: don't use the Roger Butcher or Mike Ferry approach. You're very successful sales. Here's the 51 duties and tasks that every real estate person does for their clientele. Enumerate all those duties and tasks. And I've seen a case whereby the listed agent was expecting a referral because he got a quick offer, contract acceptance, closing within a few weeks. And he was expecting some really compliments at the closing table and references. Just got the opposite. What do you mean? You look at number 13, number 17, number 19, number 27 on your list. You didn't do all that stuff. Sir, I didn't have to. It was a moot issue. I'm sorry. You didn't do what you promised you were going to do. Amazing. So the bottom line is, when you agree to do this, have a surgeon do surgery on this. Do we ask them every tool that they're going to use or every step of the process? No. But think of your 6 or 7 things to go ahead and embellish that causes you to be different than other competing agents trying to get that listing. Again, you probably already passed that, but again, for future advertising, these things you need to be thinking about. Also, at this point in time, is it important for you to know you may be dealing with one person as a homeowner, knowing that they have a spouse? What's the big mistake? Exactly. Oh, it's okay at this point, sometime prior to now, you probably learned what the reason for motivation for selling is. Well, we've been married for 20-something years, but we find out we grew apart and we're getting divorced. The antenna goes up in your mind. You then start asking, is there a divorce decree already, or if it hasn't been official yet, and get both, as Jenny points out. I've seen one case in the past. I speak for my significant other at that time, and lo and behold, they were not speaking. So that agent missed a lot of time, wasted expenses. As you know, even new affiliates now, and by the way, you need to do a good job in your presentation part to make sure that the seller knows how you're paid. They think if they agree to a 6% marketing plan, they think many of you are getting paid 6% of that $200,000 list price house. Isn't that what some people think? No. Again, we're not going to go through that. Half of that goes to another company who brings a buyer. Well, I didn't realize that. Oh, all that marketing stuff you want to do? That agent pays for that? Oh, yeah. Uncle Sam takes 25%? Yeah. You got to have a split to your office because you use websites, you get staff resources. Oh, I didn't realize that. Some people think of the corporate way. They're used to hourly and salary jobs, turning an expense report. I used to think that before I got in real estate years ago. The realtor was taking us to see properties, and I was assuming that she would turn into her company and get reimbursed for the business expenses. No, not she can deduct our taxes. By the way, tomorrow morning, I encourage those of you that can. We got the CPA group that does for Bob, for Excel, Land coming out for 1-hour tips for realtors. And so get the current and best ideas in terms of all the advantages of being a real estate professional, what can be deductible and so forth. So 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Also, a title policy. Why is it important for you to go ahead and ask? Well, we don't have to ask. Well, I noticed that you purchased this property 5 years ago. Why should you ask for a copy of the title policy? You can let them know, and again, another differentiation for you, a lot of realtors are not even aware of this, even experienced people, that seller may be able to use that in helping them with negotiations. They get a request when the buyer is under contract, they have a home inspection, and the home inspection finds 51 things to do. The buyer's pretty reasonable. They only ask for 5 things to be done by the seller, but they're going to be costly things. And the buyer and seller reach an impasse about $500 apart. I've come way lower as a seller than what I wanted to sell this on. I'm not going any further. The buyer said, I've come up further, higher, and I need those extra repairs. And rather than have an impasse and break, well, Mr. Seller, would you like to go ahead and have me offer on your behalf a reissue credit the buyer can use to save 30% on the cost of title expenses? Again, those of you that taught trades should remember this. For some of you that may not have, because I actually know experienced agents who forget this. 30% reissue credit. So, $1,200, let's use $1,000 title insurance policy, $300 right there. In lieu of seller doing the required repairs, seller to submit title insurance policy, which should enable buyer to save 30%. And I've seen that. I've used that myself to close the gap. You got a deal. Does that make sense? So what we're trying to do is find win-win situations. But here, even on this listing, what do you do next? Things to ascertain and learn. Also, do they have a survey? They have a survey already done. You think that might be helpful when you market? Go ahead and upload that, FYI. You know, there is a tax plat that, you know, buyer's agents can pull off from the buyers, as you know, in the tax records. And also other items on site with you, your Sentry lockbox, don't forget to have that with you, your yard signs in your vehicle, pointer signs possibly. They may be in a subdivision where there's 3 or 4 turns and you want to put a pointer sign off the main road into back to where your subject property is being listed. What's the main thing to remember there? Is always ask for permission. Thank you, Becky. Go ahead.
Ask permission.
Of the
Don't
homeowners.
put it in somebody's yard without
Yeah.
asking. And you know what I do? I have a stack of $10 gift cards
Yeah.
in my car that I keep, and I go and ask, can I put a pointer in your, even in open houses, can I put the pointer sign in your yard for this? And if they say yes, I give them $10 gift card just for letting them do it.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. I used to do the same with, I used to have the printed, nice pen that I gave. I gave one to, on Rocky Fork Road, Almoville, and I knocked on the door, identify who you are, and I'm listing a neighbor's house down on Rocky Fork. Would you give me permission? I had the pointer sign so they knew how big it was. May I put this near the, you know, main road? I said, certainly. Follow me. We walked up the front sidewalk, looked at the front entry garage door. He had his remote. He opened it up. I must have seen 45 or 50 real estate signs in his garage. He said,
You
not
should
one.
be selling them.
He said, not one of those, and he used profanity, effing real estate people asked like you have done. You know what happened? I gave him, I thanked him and gave him that little pen. It was like 4 or 5 years down the road. Look, do you remember me? And I remember the name and everything. And he said, because of the courtesy that you had, I'm thinking about selling. I'd like to have you list my house. That little act of consideration, that wasn't not my intent, but it actually caused a good thing. And everyone here, the reason why, you know, we have the atmosphere, the culture here, we have people like you that have good hearts, selfless, and it's gonna come easy, and it's not gonna be put on like somebody who's, you know, it's not the way they are. They may wear on their clothing how much of a Christian they are, but their actions belie their Christian values. You know, it doesn't make you feel. We don't have that worry because you are trying to be the best person you can without put on. Right?
Make sure you do not put the signs in the right of way. And
That's right.
it's easy to tell in the neighborhoods because it's, especially if they have sidewalks, between the road and the sidewalk, any of that grass, you cannot put a sign in. It has to be on the other side of the sidewalks, okay? City, county, city comes around, they're gonna mow or whatever, they're gonna rip them things out, they're gonna throw them away, you've lost your signs. You can get fined for it too. Somebody takes a picture of your sign, sends it into TREC, and says, hey, these people have been putting their signs in the right of ways, and you can get fined for that.
I could drive
There's
around
no
today.
sidewalk, then what?
Well, let me go ahead and give you an example. First of all, if you got, let's say this is Casey Lane. Well, take the Casey Lane away. I only thought of that. That's one of the few that have a sidewalk. But let's say this is a sidewalk, and you got houses going this way. What Becky is saying is, first of all, do not put your sign in between the road and the sidewalk. That 3 foot, it'll be yanked. Also, you may be thinking as a new affiliate, how do I put the angle of the sign? In this case, would you not want to put it this way so that they see front and back? You got double-sided. Now this, if you have, this is your subject property you're listing, that's an example where you want to go ahead and have people see it from the way front of the street into the cul-de-sac. just one side is what they're gonna see. Does that make sense? Another little tip also is, if you have a city property, city water, you've got the rectangular metal water meter in the front. During July and August, hot weather, and the soils around here, many times rock, clay, and there's times where frankly, you can't get that stake pounded in. You can at least get one leg of your sign in because of the separation where that the metal water meter box, you've got a little crevice there which you can get, one of the legs in. Keep with you, I always had a rubber mallet to pound that stake in the ground. If you don't have a city water meter, another thing I've learned is your concrete driveways or blacktop asphalt driveways will also, because of the heating and contraction of the dirt, will have a little separation. You can sometimes put your sign in there. Now, what Becky is also bringing out is rights of way. If you put something in the rights of way on I-24, 84, I know years ago, there was a lady was a top producer, and she had one of her signs and it was in the hundreds of dollars of fine because it was on an interstate or whatever pulled. The fines typically are going to be $30 or something. Murfreesboro, exceeding. And by the way, you can go into let's say it's a city of Murfreesboro. Go on their website, plug in an address. They'll show you the maps online and where the easements are, rights of way, and so forth, to give you a little help. The little things, if you don't have time to go through that, things that I've learned. Let's say you're on 231 South. You got 2 lanes going either direction. You got grassy area in between. Let's say this is Midland Fosterville Road. You got a stop sign here. If you have 3 signs placed already at the stop sign and you're about to put in your new listing because you've got something back in Fleming Farms, all signs will be pulled if it's more than that 3 signs permitted. And technically, right of way is really deep in that case. That signs can be pulled in that regard. Certainly, you should not have anything here. Let's see. If you have a, let's say on Haynes Drive, Haynes Drive, by the way, in the major thoroughfare plan, that 2 lane is going to be expanded to a 5 lane, turn lane, and so forth. It was supposed to be in 2021 or so, but eventually it's going to be. So a lot of the properties on one side, you got Jameson Place subdivision across the street, and you got Haynes. Houses back here got a deep setback. A lot of the land's going to be expanded into road when they start that process. And I got to tell you, yours truly had a listing years ago, one of my first residential listings, and I thought I complied. But Brian Hardison at the time, signage enforcement at the city of Murfreesboro, remembered, I told him, I said, I thought I complied by putting a foot in between the imaginary line. Here's a little tip. If you see utility poles going, yeah, just, if this was your listing, put your sign back behind that. If you put it out here, which a lot of the political campaigners, Brian, I'll never forget, said, Lucky, I remember your sign because it was just a foot inside that line, but because the politicians are the ones who really violating more than anybody. To be consistent, I had to pull your sign. I hated to do it because I thought you were probably doing your best to keep it inside. It was like 60 feet off the road. And I said, oh gosh, 1 foot. So I paid the fine to get it out. Sometimes it's not worth the cost of the sign. Maybe it's, less than the fine, They keep them like 30 days. But the point is, that's another tip to keep in mind. What else?
Also, the bandit signs, you see them all the time, the LGI homes or the Beezer homes or the we buy homes for cash. They're always in that right way, and they get jerked all the time.
Well, Brian, one time, and then the lady that's now the department head, we had doing a training. Brian at one time said, there was a lot of signs put on utility poles, stop signs, which were in violation. I buy houses called John, just a phone number. Yours truly one who said, Brian, out of curiosity, he first said, I hate to fine people. I warned John several times. Got to the point in time he continued to put those. Got a $3,000 fine because they were just plastered all over. And he said, you got to do what you got to do, you know. And I said, out of curiosity, did that happen to be a real estate agent?
What?
Yeah. And why do some agents do that? It's just like when Janet DeCharo and Bobby Woods in 2 successive years, there were Tennessee real estate commissioners came out to do some training what areas of emphasis. And we all kind of chuckled when both said there's agents that they've investigated and fined people. Some of them are top producers. They're budgeting thousands of dollars to be fined. They're rolling the dice. They say, well, I can get potentially more business by blind ads. Because people tend to call, if they know it's a salesperson in their line, they're not going to call. So they're thinking, the agent's thinking, I'm going to go ahead and get that business out. Go ahead and pay a fine if I get caught. Again, you know, that's the type of person that we would not invite in our office. You know, not to say anyone here is perfect, but you know, that kind of intentional thing, and you just shake your head what goes on out there. Does that give you enough about signage placement? What do you do if the seller says they don't want you to put a sign in the yard? Have you ever had that happen? I don't want my neighbors to know I'm trying to sell my house. I've seen that happen. You politely say, well, have you heard of the World Wide Web? One of the things I'll do is market in the internet. People all around, and my job is to help cause your house to sell. You'll be hurting yourself. And there's really no way we can keep that. I would strongly recommend, because a lot of my marketing is designed to have drive-bys to see, and normally you talk a person out of that requirement. Also, if you could avoid having the seller encumber you to be present for all showings. William Jennings made that possible request here recently, and trusted me and saying, no, statistic and research says that buyers and buyers agents, if the listing agent's home or the homeowner's home, the buyer spend less time, feel encumbered, didn't feel comfortable, and it's recommended they not be present for that reason. And plus, normally you're going to have a lot of other business rather than just that one listing. You want to miss a showing opportunity because you're not available because you're working with a buyer, you know, somewhere else. So try to avoid that on that night that you get the selection that you're the listed agent. Also have a measuring device with you, because you're going to be, when you get into the MLS listing input form, the room dimensions, interior room dimensions will be completed by you. Keep in mind that anytime you see an asterisk in the MLS input form, that's a required field. So if you go to click activate, it will not activate if you have that one slot open. Another thing that Becky and I have learned, well, I woke up after spending about 3 hours to pick and choose what things I wanted in that 255 spots, filled out all the stuff, and then I clicked to save it. It didn't save the data. I clicked to save as incomplete. And RealTrax, I found out you had this and others at the office. The RealTrax was not. Yeah, there's a lot of wastage.
Well, I put in input first, and so except for that part, I put in some things and hit save. I just assumed it saved it. You went in the next day, started putting in stuff, and then saved it, and none of our stuff was saved.
Right. So what we learned was, so you don't have to go through that stressful and added work. Just go ahead and copy, and so that you paste it in the event it's lost. It'll save you a lot of time to do that.
I don't know if, I've never done it, so I don't know what
We're
you're
gonna go through
saying.
this.
I'm gonna
You're
go
saying
through it.
Copy and paste it, okay.
Okay, yeah, we'll go through that. Okay, with that in mind, we'll start with the listing agreement form. Before we get to the point, why don't you go ahead and cover the pre-population endowment? We want to do that an hour later. Okay. This will be something that would help you, the to save some time, because, for example, a seller's name would not only appear on the listing agreement form, but rather than having you take extra time when you get to these other forms, put in a seller's name again, the document will go ahead and enable you to do that.
You need to, before you can do any of the autofill, you've got to have their information in here as people. Right now, I've got a few in here that are not the sellers, but you can add, all right, we're just gonna put me in as the seller. All right, that's not personal email, we use it. And I am the seller. And add.
You can probably expect them to send you an email requesting a $10 gift card.
Yeah.
Oh, no, just-
Actually, I'm gonna get the referral, so I'm expecting like $100 gift card for each referral.
Okay.
Okay, now that you have a seller in here, and by the way, if it is a 2 people, 3 people on the title, every person has to have an email, so you cannot use the husband and wife under one email, okay? The husband has to have an email, the wife has to have an email, or parent and child, if it's something like that, but every person has to have their own separate email, has to.
Does
Now,
everybody know, and let them know how you can set it up for them. If they don't have the second personal email, you can actually set up an account for them.
yeah, I mean, if it's an older couple, maybe they just have one that they use together, that's okay. Go in and set them up a Yahoo or a Google account. Let them, put in a password, but you can set it up right there for them, and then you'll have that email to use for them. Just,
Right before you do that, I would go, since you're gonna show how it self-populates, you need to make the agent, put the agent in there.
yeah. Yep.
Lucky the agent or something.
Thank you, Max.
You don't have him as the agent.
Here he is. Role is listing agent. There he is. And admin, Bob Realty's always gonna be in there, you don't have to put them in there. They're always gonna be there for you, okay? Always gonna be there for you. Alright, now I've got Lucky as our listing agent, and I'm gonna be the seller, admin's in here. As of right now, that's probably all that you know, unless you know what title company they're gonna use to close it. If you do, if it's Memorial or whoever, go ahead and put them in as well. All right, now you can go back up to, what were we doing, the
Listing.
right to sell, there we go. So
Well,
highlight,
highlight something.
okay. Because I'd already opened this, it's not gonna automatically pop up with that screen, but you can go over here to where it says there it is, autofill. It's gonna come up with this screen. Seller 1, it already has me in there, okay? If there had been another seller and I'd already had their information put in, it would come up. Listing agent, it's already got Lucky there. Home warranty, if there was a home warranty, this would pull up as well.
During the listing period, let me just add something on that. There are some home warranty companies that will say, if your seller engages or contracts with us, it's free to the seller during the listing period. However, some new affiliates may think if that's advertised and the buyer asks the seller to provide a home warranty, understand that somebody's gonna have to pay for that. It's kind of misleading. The home warranty, not all home warranty companies will mislead. I can tell you, and Becky's aware of this, I had a buyer under contract and the refrigerator was not working. We discovered that after a home inspection my buyer chose to have. Called and the listing agent said, well, we are aware the refrigerator is not working. We've already contacted the home warranty company. They've been out there twice already. I said, I didn't realize that a home warranty is being, she said, my seller is providing a home warranty for the buyer. I said, great, and no additional cost, great. He said, yes. So my buyers were okay. We did the final walkthrough. At that time, it still was not corrected because it had a special part. A couple things is This was an experienced agent out of Brentwood. At the closing table, had I not been there, and this is the reason why I strongly recommend you need to be present at your closing or have a designee in your stead. Had I not been there, my buyers would have closed and learned that the listing agent, when I called her, I said, hey, I noticed we're at the closing table, I never got the confirmation that you sort of paid for the home warranty. You know her answer was? My seller had no intention of paying for the warranty. I said, wait a second. You're not talking to a neophyte here. I know exactly what you're trying to get across here. You're saying that the listing is during the listing period is free for a home. I said, somebody's going to have to pay for the home warranty. You've already represented orally. And my buyers did check with home warranty company at my recommendation prior to that, saying, is this a covered item? We didn't take her out of work. So again, at the closing table, there was an attorney there. I was on conference call. She got in a huff because she got caught. She said, I'll go ahead and pay for that. I'll use my credit card. And when we hung up, I turned to the attorney. I said, am I correct in my thinking? She's done not only something egregious, but there was an attempted act of fraud here. I said, yeah, you're exactly right. And this is a person who represented herself as some high mega producer, 15 years in business. And, you know, you have to kind of be careful. Not everybody's like that, but again, that's one of the things you can catch. And my buyer was the type that I would have gotten a complaint filed because she'd already said that's a deal breaker. If I got to spend, you know, because it was a nice refrigerator. Does that make sense? And by the way, you also want to bring with you during this, you got the listing, and just see once again if the seller's agreeing, and you put in a listing agreement, if a seller's going to provide a home warranty to subsequent buyers, and have different brochures. We got a lot of brochures in the middle of the office. Read the fine print. There's differences, whether or not you're on the buyer side or seller side.
All right, so now it's got me seller, Lucky. I was trying to go back and put the address in, but for some
So it's
reason-
where you were, but you have to like scroll down.
Yeah,
So you go to
That's what I thought, but I couldn't.
where the listing was for sale.
right there, up to the top.
Yeah, up to the
Listing for
top.
sale, click on that.
No,
No,
go to view details,
Oh,
and now scroll
there we
down.
go. Oh,
got the address in there.
there it is.
Yep.
All right. Stop. Jeez. Okay.
And then you can put the address.
Don't worry about filling in everything on that, you know, financial information, all that stuff, you don't really. But the
Yeah.
main things,
So it's just nice to have the address, cause then it'll
Yes.
go everywhere.
oh gosh, yes.
Yes. There we go. Save. Okay. Now when you go in here and you hit auto, now the first time you open this, it's gonna pop up for you automatically. You don't have to worry about it. But if you accidentally open it and gone back out, then you're gonna have to hit the auto. It should put everything in here, and it's not putting it in here still.
Well, I think you get the gist of that. Can we move on?
Yeah, we'll move on, but anyway, this will automatically put all that information into and not just this form, all the other forms, so you don't have to keep typing it every time, okay? Again, like he said, don't leave any blanks whatsoever. Put NA if not applicable. Get all your legal description, go to your tax records, get all that information, put it in here. What stays with the property, what doesn't. Remember, if they have a chandelier, an antique chandelier from their great grandmother, and they don't want it to say, tell them, I have strongly suggest replace that now before we actually start showing it. Take pictures and show this house. Because somebody's going to come in and fall in love with that chandelier, and that's the reason they want to buy the house, because the chandelier is just gorgeous. And then they find out it's not, it doesn't go with it.
Okay.
So I have a question, because I showed a house the other day, and it wasn't a chandelier, but it was TV brackets. And from my understanding, especially taking your class, fixtures, anything that is asphyxiated to the property stays with the property, correct?
That TV bracket right here will stay with this if Bob ever sells this.
So
And
is
that
it,
pre-printed language
Now-
in the purchase sale agreement, it does cover those kind of, but let me just point out something that.
It says
again,
TV mounted.
now,
That's
It
what
says,
it's in the
look,
pre-printed.
well,
right
yeah.
here,
So
TV
my
mounting brackets.
So my
This
ultimate,
is the listing agreement form. I gotta tell you, the purchase and sale agreement is the Bible of real estate. Sometimes if you will not see something restated or something
right,
in the property condition disclosure says something else. Let's say the homeowner said, I'm excluding the refrigerator. And then the buyer had asked for, in the purchase sale agreement, refrigerator. Then when you have a conflicting, what rules is the purchase sale agreement?
right.
Buyer, seller, yes.
So my question is, since it's asphyxiated to the property, can they advertise it and say that the TV brackets don't convey? I mean.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, anything's negotiable.
Okay, so I didn't know, since it was affixed to the property and it's still fixed to the property, they haven't taken it out, so I guess as long as it's gone before closing.
As long as it's in the contract.
Right.
That
That,
the brackets will not stay, you're okay.
Right.
Okay,
that would be an additional thing where ideally, the point that she made, even example with the chandelier, it'd be better for the seller to go ahead and remove it, because what's the
right,
question?
that's what I would do.
Because you all are good agents, you represent the buyer, and if you find out the buyer wants, all that stuff either retained or removed. If it was removed, what's the buyer thinking? Well, geez, what's the sheet rock gonna look like? Am I gonna have to repaint all that stuff that's removed? So that's another reason why I treat it like the chandelier. Go ahead, get that done beforehand. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like, why wouldn't they, but I just wanted to make sure, like, you could advertise it. even if it-
Now, if I was
even though it's
actually,
affixed to the property.
yeah, if I was actually preparing this document for use by realtors, I actually would not have done what the attorneys for TAR have done, because it really mimics a lot of the purchase sale agreement. And they may, but I think probably why they do it is reaffirm, kind of get sellers used to seeing that language when they get an offer come in, the personal property to be included, it says it's
Let's
exactly.
get
what
to
it is.
reiterate some of that stuff.
And that's probably the
Yeah,
value,
yeah.
but, okay.
We're not gonna go line by line because this is covered in contract classes if you need to, but there's a few things that we always see wrong that we wanted to point out. One is the compensation right here, a total, you're gonna put 6%, or hopefully you're putting 6% here.
We
And
can back
not
up a
doing it
second.
for, which one?
Move back up to the, on the remote controls. Sometimes a seller says, well, I got an electric garage door opener. My husband and I have never had the remotes. And then you get an offer from a buyer's agent saying, 2-car garage, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna go ahead and put in 2 in that purchase sale agreement, that blank form on the purchase sale agreement. And the listing agent learns from the seller at closing, when the buyer's asking, hey, we went through final walkthrough, everything looks good. Are you gonna leave the remote controls open? And the seller turns over to their agent saying, I told you at the time that you took the listing, we never had remote controls. Those agents that you learned that they actually had to pay for things that were missed, that's a good example, because the agent says, well, geez, I want to make you whole, it was my mistake. When that offer came in to you, I should have pointed out that they were asking for 2. So just be real careful with that.
Okay. So compensation 6, in the event the property is leased under this agreement, typically we are not going to do anything. That will be the one place you'll put the 0.
Although some cases, they want the option in the event it doesn't sell. They may say, I'll be open to that, that's not my preference. It could apply, so just
It could,
ask the
yes.
question.
Typically done, but it can. Then down here, and this is one place where a lot of people mistake and put different. Right here, it says broker shall offer a cooperative compensation to any agent who is a member participant of the MLS system in which the property is listed for the amount of, what percent? 3%. Yes, you're not gonna offer 6% unless you're just gonna screw Bob out of his and yourself out of yours.
So the mistake being some people regurgitate the 6%. But let me point out on the 3%, that's an equal divisible number of the total 6% is total, the seller's paying brokerage commissions. Does it have to be that?
No.
No.
But
you're
you're
in
in there now.
No, you may have a situation that 50% of my listings when I was rated sales were above typically 6%. I'd have a platinum plan, a gold plan, silver plan, bronze, and then fool's gold, 5 different options. And I may have 7 to 10%. Fool's gold is the seller that wants to squeeze you on commission. And if I agree to that, number one, by the way, we have a policy if you go less than 3% on the listing side, you need to have broker permission. We don't want to be known as a discount house. And there are exceptions for that and allowable, but so don't view it as you're being treated as an elementary school. In fact, you could use it to aid you, saying, hey, and Mr. Seller, do you really want to shoot yourself in the foot potentially by having me advertise on your behalf that you're only going to pay a 2 or 2.5% buyer broker commission? Do you know of some agents out there that will not show your property for less than exactly, Hector? And I had cases where the seller says, well, the reason why you're here lucky is I know what you're talking about. The reason why I won't have some of those agents list my house. They're greedy, they're selfish. And I said, well, I'm not going to disparage anybody else, but yeah, there are people out there, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. So that's something you can go ahead and use. Paradox of thrift. There's 3P method of marketers. Put a sign in the yard, put the data in the MLS, sit back and pray that it sells. They don't do anything else. No virtual tours, no professional photography, staging, or whatever, things that you may choose or may not to, Cameron.
Now, I have a question as a listing being advertised, like commission was negotiable for anything over $8. I think that, Christian, was that the one that you showed me? Where
For anything
the other
over
agents-
what? $1?
Yeah, no, it might have been Brian King showed me, but there was a commission where the agent had it listed where it says commission is negotiated anything over $1. So if you're making more than $1 on that sale, which I really hope everybody would make more than $1 on a sale, that you're gonna have to negotiate commission. I don't know enough about it to say anything, but
In all my years, I never came across one like that.
yeah, I didn't know if you could shed some
Put
light.
100% down for that. You want 100%.
No, I'm just taking
When you get to
everything.
the commissions, agreement, put you on 100% of that one then.
Perfect, yeah, let me just take
You're not taking.
Yeah, I'm gonna take 300,000 on it, 300,000 on it.
Well, sometimes if you do have a listing and you're on the buyer side and it's less than, keep in mind that in your buyer orientation or consultative service, remember to fill on the bottom page 1 that in the event, your buyer goes around you to a for sale by owner or a builder, then the buyer is authorizing that they'll be responsible for making up that difference.
Yeah.
And many times, frankly, if you're doing your job, they'll say, hey, Cameron, I would not want you to get paid less. I know you spend a lot of time and all the education you take and spent money on it. And I wouldn't feel good to benefit from your services and you get shortchanged. I want to make sure you will get paid, even if the seller doesn't pay for sale by owner. So that's good language. Go ahead and move on. Or good enough. We'll talk more about that after.
Okay, yeah.
And then right here, it's for if the buyer's agent from a non-MLS, that's not in our MLS, we're still gonna pay
I came across one in
for a
Bedford
2.5
County,
whatever percent.
the other side of Shelby. I was really surprised. And they did not participate in RealTracs, MLS. I'm thinking, how do they do?
Right, yeah, I was about to say, how do you do anything?
But the bottom line is there are some sellers that will tell you, Cameron, I know you work at a company, you share commissions, you clarified the 6%, 3% of that going to someone else, not going in your pocket. And frankly, I wouldn't feel right if you all have to spend compensation in that regard. Why would another company that's not paying those extra fees that you're paying in your brokerage? I want to go ahead and say either 0 or a reduced amount in the bottom of the page there, wherever it's at. So again, that's a non-MLS question, fill in that blank, wherever it was.
Yeah, right. I lost my cursor there. Right there. Right here.
So that's sometimes also overlooked. Read what it actually is asking for.
Oh, and FYI, there are some MLSs that will not pay if you're not a member. I think Chattanooga may be one of them up that way. If you're not a member, so check your compensation agreement and make sure that they don't put 0 for you.
As we found out,
Somebody ran
Jacob,
into it a while
if you ever get
back.
involved with commercial, many times you have more of a situation like that. That's a different
Be
topic.
careful, but yes.
By the way, this is existing residential. There's other forms germane to new construction.
Oh, yeah.
Residential.
All right, and then pretty much everything else is filled in. It's gonna fill in your name as the designated, agent for the seller. Home protection, if there's one, put it in. If you know who the company's gonna be, go ahead and put that information, or if it's waived.
By the way, we'll complete this document and we'll take a 5-minute break and get back into it. Is that all right? Okay?
Then confidentiality, remember anything that they tell you they want kept confidential, you should go ahead and put it in this spot. Special steps, if there's anything special they want, special stipulation, put that here. Of course, this already, and I'm not going over Dotleaf per se, because I think Greg does a really good job with that. Thanks, Greg, or Chris. But it will go ahead and assign who signs where, and y'all know how to do that, right? Okay. So that's really all on the listing agreement that we were gonna go over. No, I'm not saving anything.
By the way, if you missed some training topics, you couldn't be present. For about 2 years now, we've been recording in-house training sessions, and it has not hurt our attendance. Like for years, I never did that because I knew once you start doing that, people would say, I'm going to stay in my skivvies this morning. I don't want to get out and go to a training session. But it really hadn't affected our attendance. But as a result, we want to make sure you're getting what you need when you need it. So if you have a specific topic that you know you've had in the past, let us know and we'll send you a link. And either we'll do it or we'll ask Gina to do it, whatever. But I've got all those recorded.
All right, y'all take 5.
Okay. We'll come back at 10 after 10.
Hey, there was one that we recorded a few months ago with Bob Warren, the structural engineer. Can you send that one to me? Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, the next one's all really simple.
Yeah.
So they'll go fast, and then showing them what to do in my life. I'm not teaching real time, just gonna show them.
Yeah.
Photos.
Right. Upload.
That's
Upload. That'll show them as far as using the white space of photographs or other instructions.
yes, all
Yeah.
Could you point me to the direction of where I could follow up the rules for advertising?
There's always one.
Yeah, right? For advertising, because I kind of feel like I've a lot of stuff that runs the trees. And I wanted a refresher, so I make it mistakes when maybe we should advertise. I feel like I've forgotten a lot of important
Okay.
things.
Fair housing considerations.
Yeah, and where you can put something like, so one thing I was thinking about doing that I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do is, like, we have a lot of tractor in this neighborhood called tourists. And my dad's like, you should put a sign in the yard. And I'm like, I don't think I can put a sign in my yard. But, so, like saying, you know,
And that question in your transfer material, the mistake of paperwork, you'll
In, like,
see,
trees
you'll see the, that we gave you.
Oh, okay.
Just
Right. I think
You've
I
got,
can.
you've got the signage stuff in there, and it goes in, what's a temporary sign, what's a sign that's used for auctions. It goes through the details about that kind of thing, how long you would leave a sign in advance of an open house, these kind of things.
But that's my
you
own
may have to
property,
consider
you know
your
what I mean?
HOA.
So like if I'm advertising my services.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you have an HO, then you have to consider that too, but they're CCRs.
Right.
For
Yeah, no, I
example,
don't think there is, and people sort of.
Yeah, they vary significantly, but that's a starting point, is read those signage regulations.
So I know there's like a rule about.
You all right? Congrats on your closing, dude. Good stuff. First one, right?
Like four show titles,
Smooth, everything was easy.
you can't, nobody can have signage in front of the property. You can have it in the window.
I mean, it's a pretty smooth process.
Those rules strong, or?
Did you get that?
Oh.
Yeah.
No rules.
Moving, it's like.
Dude, that buyer, I think,
That's because everybody's in jail. No.
Right.
He's really nice. Real nice guy.
Is this just smart advertising for you?
He's
Yeah.
actually gonna build
Just
a
leave it
house.
permanently?
And at first it sounded like he was talking
Yeah.
about the shop, and so we sit down and he's like,
Oh,
oh, no, I said house.
Just say,
That's a good
my
question.
name,
I don't
Exit
know if it's a permanent
Realty,
residence.
Contact Associates, my phone number, but need a realtor, and then like, you know, the junk below it.
How are you
My
like?
phone number, I don't know if that's allowed.
Pretty good. I haven't
But I
done
don't
more
know.
last week.
No, I missed it.
Because I don't have an office there, so that's. I don't wanna do it. I wanna get in trouble.
Are you gonna be here tomorrow?
Let's see.
For the attachment?
Wait, okay, let me call him then.
First year's the hardest.
Well, he would know.
Friday morning, I will walk through the key to the house.
You get some more blood this year? That's drinking. And I got 4 hours to sleep that night.
That's something that,
I feel like it's a fine
Good,
line.
right. It's a
Yeah.
good night for me. It's a good night for me, much more.
Because I know there's rules about, you know, where signs of advertising, like agency, like, you know, in the joint class, I remember you saying, you know, you can't have like a mobile home and then have a sign for the agency there because it's considered like secondary industry.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's not licensed.
Pops up so many times.
Brooklyn,
I
have a
think
road,
it's-
Right.
they can have a sign, so.
Yeah.
I had one like that one thing, but that's why they're off this year, it's like,
You know, yeah.
Tell you what,
There's a way to do that without paying somebody.
Well,
so I can call you now.
honestly, I would just,
Amtrak.
sorry, I
That's one
do
reason why
round
they're-
robin
they're
here
help-
for
help from
Facebook.
that. See if they've had that
They,
question.
as people
motion
sign
for
up
real
for
estate agent,
our website for them kind of stuff, they'll send like,
people we have that are.
the lead comes in, they'll send it to our spam. Then the next lead comes in, goes to the next person.
We go there twice, like, they're always going by, right in my cul-de-sac, there's only 2 houses in that
Once we
cul-de-sac.
In your
look, you
case-
get
They're always going by stuff.
I drove
I'll
that
have realtors.
together.
In your case,
These
you know
are
there's a lot of
actually,
real estate
you know, when you
signs.
get on the website, you should look at maybe, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And see, that's-
Like, another realtor, and then put my name.
So
and,
people aren't just,
Exit Realty, and then my
they're
phone.
either
That's
Yeah.
interesting, that's all I wanted to put.
either to sell or
See,
buy or
there's a lot of
something.
listings that the
So
real
I
estate
drove
sign
that,
does not even say for
what you're
sale.
talking about, is like,
Parks have had some of those types of signs. So, I'm just a little concerned, if they're using just advertising on a permanent basis, is that
I
confusing
got
to the public?
I got another one that's like a set of
Most of
two
them,
out
I
of
think,
that
is-
chairs, I sit in this lush green, you know, and,
That's where I think. it would
click
be
the
a
same
problem.
said, it kind of faded into the back, so you see the letters, something like, sit back and
It's even
relax.
that,
and
if you
let
first start, excuse me,
do the
the
work for you.
Murfreesboro signage, there might be some indicators that address that particular topic. And it's not, I would say we could call it planning. You just say, just, you know, give them your guidance.
All right, y'all ready?
Yeah, that might be interesting.
Good question. Go ahead and do actually, well, confirmation, they gave it some, not really, just putting it as the agent for the seller.
I'm not gonna go through that again. Yeah, take that back. Okay. Confirmation of agency status, the main thing, like he said, is, and if you do the autofill, it's already gonna put the seller's name and your name in there. Make sure you click designated agent for the seller, okay? That's all you have to worry about on this form.
That is a form that you would upload. So then,
Yes.
the buyer's agent, if they're preparing an offer, they can go ahead and pull off those forms to have their site sign it. Now, if you default to be a facilitator, remember you cannot wear multiple hats in the same transaction. So if you have designated agent for the seller, and then the right-hand column, you check facilitator for the buyer. No.
No.
So just keep that in mind. Remember that was emphasized so many times, and it was one of your pre-license questions. You would actually be a facilitator. In that case, the seller's getting permission to be a facilitator on their side. And that's a tip. Use the working with real estate professional, the definitions on that. Because then they may say, Judge, my agent never told me that they were not going to be an applicant for me. Well, I don't know, Judge, is that, check to see if that's the signature. Does the person make that allegation? And here's the date and time that they signed it. Very clearly that definition says not to be an advocate. Okay, that's all I think we need to mention.
That's all I know.
Loki,
Yes.
so have them, have that form included and also, and have them sign it? work
Yeah,
with
seller
the
sign.
agent,
Well,
Or
in
just,
this case, as far as the uploading, just
Yeah.
have this confirmation of agency, designated agent for the seller.
right,
Upload that on the MLS listing form. That's all you have to do.
I'll show you that in
Okay.
just a minute. Okay, let's see.
Go through the disclaimer.
Alright, yes, disclaimer, and again, this is one that you will upload into MLS, because it has to be signed by both parties. Of course, this is your CYA form, and you're at the address here, will go here. What is it specific you wanna go over this?
We don't have time to go through the details. Any questions on that? It's really covering tracks. Again, if it's important to the sellers as far as square footage, these kind of things, really more important for the buyer. But when we take a listing, have your antenna go up. You know, if you go on that appointment and you find out that your seller has renovated the unfinished space upstairs, and you ask, did they get a permit? We find out, no, they didn't, because they didn't want the tax department taxing them more valuable property, larger. Does that make your listing unsellable? No, but it needs to be disclosed. One of the questions on the 5-page disclosure, property condition disclosure, is that question. However, it behooves you to go ahead and ask the seller who did the work, were they licensed, and have that information scanned. You could upload it to allay any concerns from buyers, agents, and so
Also,
forth.
wouldn't that affect the title transfer as well?
Possibly, yeah, certain types of loans, yeah.
Because I know in some cases, a lot of people will have a 3-bedroom septic tank, but like this happens a lot out in Jefferson Pike out near the dump, is that a lot of those houses have, they call it like a walkout attic.
Yeah.
And they'll finish it and they'll turn one side into a bedroom and the other side into a bonus room and then advertise it as a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, but it's only have a 3-bedroom septic permit, so.
Well, yeah, that's another good point. If you're not dealing on a city type property that has sewer, ask them if they already have a permit. Many times they will, most often they won't. And therefore, there's a TAR document you could request, it's on the file. Cameron, the point that you're making, thank you, is as a listing agent, you are required not to post or advertise as a 4-bedroom listing, even if the homeowner is using it as a 4-bedroom, if it's only permitted for 3.
You can do a 3-bedroom and an office, and that would help.
Exactly.
Because if you do a 4-bedroom and advertise it as that, that's gonna create a lot of issues trying to transfer the title. If it's advertised as a 3-bedroom, it won't cause those issues. The only reason I know that is I spoke with Jessica Allen over at Memorial Title, because I didn't even know that, so.
Well, that's something that,
that was the signature part. So, there, since I have a husband and wife, the way mine went through is husband signed on the left, wife signed on the right. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Just mark, if they're the buyer or the seller
That's what-
right
yeah,
here.
we did
In this
that.
case, right now, since we're doing listings, they would be the seller. Just
It
mark
doesn't
that.
matter what sign they go on.
I thought they had.
No.
I know, but don't leave blanks.
Well, yeah, no, it doesn't need to be like blank, but it doesn't matter which sign, husband and wife sign.
No, that doesn't matter.
getting back on the septic permit, if you do have one, go ahead and upload that as well, because again, think of it, always think of whatever side you're on, put yourself in the shoes of the other side, what would you want to have? And that's always helpful in negotiations too. So go ahead and post what you know. Also, if there's been improvements, who did the work, get those copies of information. If there's a home warranty, have a copy uploaded so that people know what the cost of that the seller's paying for, up to maximum $450, whatever it is.
Nice.
And be prepared to have your seller sign that disclaimer 3 or 4 times before it's over with.
Yes.
Because so many agencies want all signatures on one form, which is ridiculous. Because that is actually a protection for you and your seller
Yes.
to protect you. But some of the agencies still use their own personal forms and they want all the signatures on one form. And
Yes.
you can't argue with them because their broker has set his feet down and you have to do more than one. But I'm just letting you know that
Yeah.
since that used to have 4 signatures on it. And they changed it 2 years ago and it's been a hassle ever since.
It has been.
Well, it only protects, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but the disclaimer only protects the person whose name is at the bottom of the contract. So if I let my buyer sign that, I have no protection. And so I had that conversation with an agent out in Shelbyville because he was trying to get me to do that. And I said, look, I'll have them sign that, but they're gonna sign one for me as well, for me to keep, because if my buyer signed that and it has your name at the bottom, I have no protection and I'm both liable to be sued if something were to be happened or something happened. I just want to make sure that I was right, because I've read through that and it's like, it doesn't sound like there's any protection for the agent whose name is not on it. So.
All right. We got that.
Bottom line is, either way, the company's that requires an additional document or not. I haven't read any test cases on that to see what would be the strongest argument. It doesn't hurt if you feel more comfortable having that extra. Go ahead.
Okay, the next thing, of course, you don't even touch except for to send it to them, the property condition disclosure. They're gonna fill out that, you know that. As soon as you get it back though, you'll need that to download into,
Here's the tip.
MLS.
Have you review what your seller has answered. Many times they will not intentionally answer questions. Now, if you were a buyer's agent representing a buyer, you're probably gonna say your seller that they just overlooked. Is there a reason why they didn't fill out that question? So when we talk to the seller, go ahead and see if there's a reason why they didn't answer yes, no, or unknown. And there is truth. You've heard this many times. When in doubt, Mr. Seller disclose. Oh, you know, northwest corner of the garage, there were termites, there was repairs done, and Thomas Pest Control did a treatment, chemical treatment, it's provided 1-year warranty. I don't need to disclose that because I haven't had the issue since. Well, why not? It's only, you know, to add one little sentence. This was done, and here's the company that did it. Puts the onus on the buyer, right? You don't want to have a coincidental situation occur where termites coming in because they diluted the chemical, and they come back in the same area, and they say, well, look inside the interior sheetrock interior walls, and there was damage previously, and I'm going to sue the seller and the listing brokerage for not disclosing that. You don't want that to happen. Just when in doubt, disclose.
Next form, the disclosure of business referrals. This is one more CYA form for our office, okay? It's not you won't find it on TAR forms. And this, like again, is just to CYA us.
That's a good
You
point.
actually will sign this form, okay? Your sellers will sign it, you will sign it, or buyers if you're doing buyers.
What's the best, I guess, verbiage that you can present in this document? How do you put it?
If you could ask a question on business service providers recommended, you know, always try your best to have 3 or more service providers. Say, hey, you've asked me, I'm providing a service to you. You've got to make your decision. Go ahead. I can't guarantee their performance. These are service providers that have performed well for others in the past, but that could change, and I can't be held liable.
Yeah.
Now, you know, that's basically what's even stated here.
That's pretty much.
Yeah, and I've learned that even in the corporate world.
Yeah, that's
You
how
know, I had 8,000 employees, 12 manufacturing plants, and I had a situation where we went to an arbitrator. The 6th case, he had been really good for 5 different cases. He must have had dementia or Alzheimer's, because his memory was gone. And I'm thinking, you know, the analogy here is that can happen to any one of us. We recommend a home inspector, and they drop the ball, guess who? The judge is told by this buyer who says, you know, this home inspector that my agent recommended missed X, Y, and Z things, I think they were in collusion because they wanted to get paid. And, you know, I've spent thousands of dollars, and yeah, I asked them for a recommendation, but I really thought they'd be fair-minded, good, and they dropped the ball, that they should be held liable. You see how that could be held against us? Mr. Judge, this is the 3 that I gave, orally and writing. This is the disclaimer. I can't guarantee their performance. They asked me to provide the service. You see how that would help?
Transaction fee. This one, very simple. Again, it's just ours. It's not in TAR's. But you put your client, the property, sign. It's very self-explanatory. Some people, and I know I've done this, I do not charge the $262. It just comes out of my commission. Office is still gonna want this signed, and what I will do sometimes is what I usually do is put a statement. You can always add a text box here, and I will put, that I'm actually gonna be paying this, that it will not come out of their, closing costs. So,
Also, if they are gonna pay that, let them know that it's factored in with their closing costs.
Yes.
Not try to write a check, so.
yeah, let them know that is part of their
Yeah.
closing costs. They don't have to come up with that and check to you right now or at closing as well.
Yeah, because a lot of people try to be like, well, can I go ahead and just pay you that?
Right,
Or
right.
they'll try to bring a check
It's
for it.
becoming, as you probably found out, more accepted by clientele because majority of real estate firms do have that. In the days of the increase in splits and everything else, that's how companies have, you know, make ends meet. Not all companies do that, but it's become a little easier when you say lenders charge a closing fee, title companies use that closing fee, and real estate company administrator have a fee. In our case, we're one of the few that's actually, once you get to a certain level, almost the equivalent of like 10 closings, then that money is, if you continue to charge, it can come back to you.
Which one is it that they will not allow that?
VA.
VA loans, yeah, VA loans will not even let you allow to charge that, so it's gonna have to come out of your commission.
Yeah, I was gonna say, VA only
Thanks
takes
for
buyers like that.
pointing that out. That's a good reminder.
Yeah, so if you got a VA, just remember you got it.
But some of you, if you have a loyalty ladder, even if you don't do like Becky's doing, she doesn't charge any clientele, you may, you know, the second closing group or whatever, you know, you say that I'm not gonna, that's not gonna be charged because you've been loyal. And I mean, you could vary, I mean, you're running your own business.
Sometimes some of the lenders will eat that
That's
cost
what,
too,
yeah, I was about to
Okay,
say,
so,
get a good
depending
relationship.
on your lender.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, get a good relationship with the lender and see if they'll pay for it. Cause that's a good meet for me. A lot of people are like, I don't wanna pay that extra, well, I shouldn't say a lot, I've had a few people say, I don't wanna pay that extra $260 fee. And I tell them, if you use this lender, they will eat that fee for you.
But make sure your title company is aware that you're.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean,
They leave it
Jessica
off.
and Dave work together. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's one of the advantages of Godly, when you actually set it up with the pre-populated fields, you got your lender or title company, then you're more assured that you're not gonna forget those kind of documents.
Well, but even if you send it to them, you have to call them and tell them because.
Remind them, it's
Half the
habit.
time,
That happened to me last.
Half the time they don't see that or it's habit that they put it in.
Yes.
You know, I'm not gonna
I
charge.
mean, if you use memorial title, it's not usually an issue, but many times you have to use a different title company. And when you're using a different title company, they're not used to it, and if you don't remind them, it won't go in.
Yeah, foundation title, and I don't like throwing names out there, cause they're, and I had, this has happened to me twice with this closing company, but, foundation title, send it to them as many times the day of closing, you need to be looking at the CD, making sure that they're taking that out, or they're debiting that to the buyers and making sure that you're gonna have that on your check, because you'll get your check and you'll be like, wait, this isn't right, because it's $260 short, so.
Okay, next floor on compensation, agreement between listing and the buyer, oh, I'm not doing that, hold on. Okay. Let's see, selling brokers shall receive the following compensation. We don't usually do dollar amounts, but there's your percentage. So if you're charging them the seller 7%, but you're only gonna pay that listing broker or selling broker 2.5, whatever, this is where you put it in. Okay? and sign. But this is the one thing where people sometimes make mistakes, and I have seen people put 6% right there, which means you're just paying them everything, and you're not taking a commission.
Now, in the case that were to happen, like, you think most selling agents would probably,
You
There's
never
some
know.
good people out there.
There
I was telling Becky during break, I said, I saw that I kind of teased the listing agent because I knew it was just an unintentional mistake. I said, oh, you're paying my side 6%? You know, when it said, you know, facilitate. Sometimes listing agent makes a mistake. Remember that first, put the full, and no, we are the type to say, no, I know the intention is going to get it corrected. But there are some greedy people out there who may argue the opposite.
So that's the big one to watch on this form here.
In certain situations where that's the percentage of the contract sale price, you may think that the seller accommodated, and this is a result of negotiations, you remember in your contracts class, there are certain cases where the seller agreed to artificially raise contract sale price, their net was much lower, and they'll come to you and say, hey, my intention is not to pay the brokerage percentage on the higher amount. Let's say $6,000 was requested by the buyer for their closing costs and prepaids, and the contract, their net value to the buyer or the seller was $200,000, not $206,000 contract sale price. And sometimes the seller's thinking, they may argue with you, it's not covered in advance during the negotiation period. My intention is not to pay 6%, 3% on both sides on 206. It should be applied to the 200, which is what I'm getting. You see what I'm saying?
So like the commission you paid on the.
Yeah, if you read the language, the pre-printed says sale price. So if you have that in mind, you know, cover it on the front end during negotiations that will be paid.
We did that on Bonita, I remember.
Yeah.
Because we had to inflate the price.
I've always felt, even if I was on a buyer's side, I've always felt as though it's not something that, this is Carl, you want to go ahead and talk to him?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
On the compensation agreement between the listing, the selling, and the, you know, the buyer agreement, whose responsibility is it to fill that form out and send? Isn't it the listing?
Actually, the listing agent, it doesn't really matter, but you as the listing agent, when you're listing out and getting all your paperwork, you need to go ahead and fill this out, and I always go ahead and upload it into MLS. And when we get into the MLS in a minute, I'll tell you every form that should be, just to make your life easier.
Yeah, and the only reason why I asked is I had one listing agent that bit my head off because I asked for it. And he said, no, that's your responsibility. Send it to me. And I'm like, what? So.
I feel like it should be the listing agent.
That's what
because
I
that's-
had to fill it out. That's
I was the buyer.
But I've seen it both ways.
It is the responsibility of both agents, and that's.
Well, that's true,
Yeah,
because,
I've had that talk with the listing agent where they were saying it's my responsibility, and my response back was, you're right, it is my responsibility, but it's also your responsibility. I'll fill it out, it's no issue, but it's both of our responsibilities, so just.
fill it out, put form.
You got lazy
Send it
agents
out, do
out
what they
there.
do. Might not even look at it, and they done it, you know. Okay, now the next two we're gonna get into, a little more, the showing time appointment center. This form, again, you can auto, and I'm not doing that right now. Make sure today's date, and you have to have, you've
Now,
got
wait a
to
second,
have that
on
MLS
today's
listing.
date. Let me point out a real life example. Let's say you're there Friday night. They want to go ahead and get it on the market, but they have agreed to do some of the things that you recommended. You know, pressure wash the front door before people start seeing it, or add mulch on the front. It's going to take a day or two. So that's when you need to go ahead and ask, when would you like this to be activated? And it's going to take you, there's a lot more time involved for you on listings up front. Once you get things set up and you prepare your ad, get your signers out there, these kind of things, then hopefully you're fielding offers and helping the negotiation side. But you may have, the date may be better suited to be next Monday afternoon or Tuesday. You don't want to get caught when you put a date in there and then go too many days and you haven't activated, and then the seller potentially say, you didn't do what you said to do. You were inept or lazy, you didn't get it activated during the date that you said you were going to do. Does that make sense?
I have a question. Yes. Okay, so, and this is where I get a little confused, but, when you, as soon as you get a listing agreement from your client, then you have 48 hours to upload that into
Into
RealTrack.
MLS.
But if they're not ready, say they don't want it to go active for 2 weeks.
Right
That's the
here,
point I'm
date restriction
Right.
at the bottom, you can put, let's say, from the date that you put it into MLS for a week, put that date and time in here. You can also put instructions right here, notes for the appointment staff. Put in here that the actual showings will not start until February the 10th, okay?
But when you put it in RealTracks, then you have to list it as incomplete, correct? You said.
Yeah, it's not activated.
Right.
If you're not gonna activate it for 2 weeks,
Yeah, but
Well, it can
RealTracks,
be coming soon.
I was about to
It'll be
say-
coming soon.
yeah.
Yeah, it's coming
Yeah.
soon.
you can do it that way.
Another thing while we're on, right here on this little subject, let's say I'm going on a cruise in 2 weeks and I don't want you showing my house while I'm on this cruise. So put that in there. I mean, you don't have to say why,
Right.
but, because they will read these instructions off to the other agent. If you don't want them to know why you don't want it shown, just say, you know, for this week, the house cannot be shown, okay?
And
Right.
while we're
Put that
on
in
this,
there.
this is a great time for me to be up here, on the showing time, you can do it through Dotloop
Mhm.
and send it to them, but you're waiting on a third party to put in your information.
Right.
Or you can go to showingtime.com on your own laptop, go ahead and register. They have your information in there because they base it off of your
Right.
MLS number,
Yeah.
and then it is activated then.
Mhm.
So if you get a listing on Friday night and they want it to be active on Saturday morning, you log into showingtime.com, you enter in all this information and don't let Showingtime do it. And you control what is put
It's
into
faster.
all of these, and it goes live instantly,
Is
because
it-
you're the
But we
one.
still fill it out in .loop so that you guys have it, right?
You can, but
Do you
we,
not need this?
we-
You can do it online.
They don't need it, but I still would have it.
We don't have to have that, because that's not really, we don't look at that.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
But here's one thing, if
It
you,
does become helpful if for some reason you're not making it active and you've already got a sign in the yard and all this stuff, and then we get phone calls and we're like, well, I don't know if you've got the listing on 123 Main Street, we don't have any information.
Right.
You know, so then at that time Lily could, or Christy could pull up Dotloop and say, oh, it looks like it's not going, but chances are, they're not gonna do that, they're not trained to look through all your documents and know what each contract means and all that stuff, they
Right.
just do the minimum. So when you're turning in a pending input sheet or listing input sheets, write it on your listing input sheet. Coming soon will be active, you know, X date or whatever, or let us know. Just call the front office and say, hey, I got a sign in the yard, a lockbox on, but we're not, it's a coming soon. So if you get any phone calls on 123 Main Street, it's mine, that's where it's coming from. Let the front office know. If it's not in the MLS and we don't have anything, we can't magically make it appear.
Right.
So,
Does the desktop version work the same as the app? Because I use the app
for what?
showing time.
Now, the showing time, are you talking about, are you logging in and putting in information, or are you just
Well,
scheduling?
that's what I'm asking. Does it work the same?
It should, you should
Okay.
be able to work it on your phone, the tablet, a computer, or any of those things. As long as you
Right.
can input the information, it should be compatible.
Mhm.
If for some reason it's not working, then you need to call showing time and figure out why.
Mhm.
But what happens is when you guys are entering into the MLS, unless you specifically state
Right.
over to the left-hand side, it's gonna default to the showing time number. So if you want people to call you to make the bookings, you're gonna have to scroll over, bring that arrow down, and then call agent and put your phone number in. Otherwise, it's gonna default to the showing time. And then if you don't do your showing time immediately, showing time's not gonna have any information.
Right.
The agent's gonna call the office, we don't have any information.
Mhm.
Now you've already ticked off this agent, they're not even gonna show your house because nobody knows any information about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you
So-
get the listing, immediately, if they're ready to go live, my suggestion is, don't wait on a third party to put in your information, go to showingtime.com.
Yes.
Go ahead and get your information set up ahead of time before you guys even start going to listings. So that you have all your information in, because there could be a glitch, or it could be that they have to call the verify to make sure you are an agent with us.
Mhm.
So I highly recommend everybody today, just go on showingtime.com, go ahead and register, have it up and running, know what your password is. That way when you do get a listing, it's just easy peasy.
Right, yeah. Okay, so on if you're filling this out, well, you need to know this information anyway, even if you're going straight into the computer to do it, you've got to have all this information. What type of appointment? Is it gonna be, one that's required and you've got to confirm with the sellers, with the listing agent? Is it gonna be just a courtesy call to somebody? Is it gonna be a show and go? Usually the show and goes are vacant homes. Go. We don't have to have permission, just go. Maybe it's appointment required. Well, that's the same one.
For like a 24-hour notice.
Yeah, some have need a 24-hour notice, and you'll have to put that in the.
Just a tip on that, try to encourage your seller not to require 24 or 48 hours, if at all
Yeah.
possible. Because you got buyers coming in from out of state sometimes, they're gonna be in here for 1 or 2 days, they're gonna make a decision. That might be the buyer that has the terms and conditions that would be something they would be interested in, and they'd be gone. So try to encourage them to be as accommodating as possible. Also understanding that they have the right to control if they're in the middle of dinner, somebody's out in front of their house, they don't immediately have to drop everything. They have the ability to say, hey, it's not convenient right now as a seller, can you give us an hour or whatever.
Do you know what the difference between any and all on the top one?
Confirm with anybody means right here, you're gonna have, maybe it's just have to confirm with the listing agent. Maybe it's just confirm with the seller.
Oh,
It's any, but all means you gotta contact everyone
Anyone
that is
that's-
listed right here. That's your contact details. You're gonna put, most of the time, you're always gonna put your sellers, but there have been some that say, no, you just let me know and I'm out. You know, but
So
very
then-
More often-
rare.
More often than not, you as a listing agent would not be requiring to approve the showing requests.
Okay,
Usually the seller's gonna want that in their control,
okay.
and just an FYI for us, that we know who's showing when.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens.
Okay.
Now, also right here, allow overlapping appointments. Yes, need to inform showing agents, yes.
There's no
please
black and white
tell.
answer on that.
There's
Yeah.
no, don't,
If you have a market like we just went out of 6 months in the previous 3 years, I always just said, yeah, we'll allow that, but notify the agents out of
Yes.
courtesy to let them know.
yes.
Because again,
Nobody
don't
wants
want-
to be
you don't
in with
miss-
another agent and they're talking about, ooh, I love this, and oh my God, let's go make an offer, and the other ones are thinking, oh God. now I
Usually
might
what
as well go
happens-
make an offer.
usually what happens is you got one agent already showing it, and another agent comes in because overlapping appointments are allowed. Usually out of courtesy, hey, I'll tell you what, I noticed you're showing your folks the interior. How about if we start on the outside and we'll reverse? That's how you can, rather than have a situation like Becky's describing. It's one way of handling it. By the way, also don't assume that the family, that there's an agent representing buyers. You know, some cagey people may make that allegation, and they're not even a licensee. If you
Yes.
give them
Do not give them the key.
access, then you can tell.
If you're there first and another one comes in, don't hand them the key for them to lock up. You put it back in that lockbox, because otherwise you are gonna go down for whatever happened, theft or destruction or whatever happened in that house. Put it in the lockbox, they've got a key, they can get it out and lock the house up.
What if they don't though?
Then that's us, they're not supposed to be there.
That person not supposed to be there. That's why I don't like overlapping. I don't like it. Sometimes I'll just ask them, can you please wait outside till we're finished? Then I put it in there and lock it up. And if they are an agent, they're gonna be able to open the lockbox and get the key.
And now that we're back in normal, frankly, there's less likelihood that you would need to consider overlapping. In a seller's market we were in,
Yeah.
it's a different story, but now it's more normal, so. Go ahead.
Okay.
Also-
And then, of course, right here, all your details, who's going to, is it that, let's say, the seller, me, so I'm gonna be the owner. Do I want a text message? Are they gonna email me? Are they gonna phone? Put any or all that apply, whatever you want them to do. Same thing with the other two people or whoever's on this list to call. Then your lockbox and security information. What type of lockbox is it? Please try to use Sentry Lock if you can. If you do, you gotta have the serial number right here, okay? Because if any of you have used your, mobile app to open a door because you don't have your key card with you, if you don't have that there, they don't know what lock boxes are. They, no way you can use the app for that, so you've gotta have that information. Any lockbox notes, if it is combo, then you'll have to have the combo on here too. Alarm codes, if there's a security alarm and they don't turn it off and they give the code out, which most people don't, but you'll have to have that information in here, okay?
By the way, in the winter months like we're in, make sure those batteries are replaced. Because once they go dead, then you have a lot of upset agents and waste of time, so keep that in mind. You'll get a little light that comes on your Sentry Lock box. I forget what it says, it's not a warning light, but
No,
there's
it's
a little
air.
juice left.
I think the error is what it.
It only flashes just a certain limited amount of time.
I think it flashes like maybe once or twice and then it's.
That's the point. It's got very little, so that's time to go ahead and, I had that happen to me years ago in the work trace. And it was a hassle during cold weather, February, you know, and, boy, so I learned that lesson.
That happened to me.
Then the showing restrictions, required lead time, here's like if you need a 24-hour notice or a 2-hour notice, whatever, put that information in. And then we went over the date restrictions. If you're not gonna show it until 2 weeks from now, start showing, or if you're gonna be on vacation for 2 weeks and out of the country. That's another thing we found one time, if the listing agent is gonna be out of the country, like we are, you might put on here, no offers will be accepted between, because you're not gonna be there to get them, okay?
Or you'd have a designated
Or-
agent.
Yes, or
That you-
designate,
And you
I'm
have
gonna
to
get
send
Sunny
them-
to take over my,
Right.
listing until I get back. If he gets an offer in, he will try to let me know, but he will handle it.
Right.
So that's another way you can put that information in there so that showing time knows, and they'll tell the showing
You
agent.
could also put that in realtor remarks, you know, during this
Yes.
amount of time period, listing agent be unavailable, but this agent, you know, will handle any questions and or offers during that time period.
Any questions on that subject?
Okay.
Okay. Now, the next form, which is very important, downstairs, the listing input sheet. Everybody's got to fill this out, okay? You have to have it filled out for every listing. And make sure, once you do all this paperwork, you submit your folder so that they know downstairs that you have a new listing. We'll go to that in a second.
And that one will not autofill.
Yeah, this doesn't autofill, sorry, you've got to do this one. Got to have that MLS number in here, okay? Gotta have it, property address, is it new construction, land or lot? If it's not new construction, not just leave it undone. Seller's information, here, do not put the whole name, it's first name only, last name down there. Now, I have found that if it's Joe and Sue, that I put Joe and Sue, and then last name. Okay.
Something that Rusty probably would add to this, but when
Hey,
on
Rusty.
HUD properties, HUD would normally require the purchaser names to be the name that shows up on the driver's license. So when you ask the seller, what names do they, for legal purposes, do they, normally it's a safe thing to put their driver's license name. If you're dealing with Bob, and his name's Robert E. whatever, then you may want to conform with the driver's license, because typically the closing companies and title companies are going to ask for a copy of the driver's license. And usually Rusty will say, I'm sure, it's got to match up, you know.
DA's the same way.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Yes,
Yes, you
I
Okay.
about that first thing.
Right on cue.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's that $10 contest listing payment at the top?
We don't use that.
We don't use that.
Okay.
No, don't worry about that. Then we go into, okay, salutation for office letter, dear Mr., Miss Smith, or dear Jack and Joe, or Jack and Susie, or whoever. I usually send out my stuff, but put that information in there just in case the office needs to send them some information. Their email address, detailed showing instructions, again, this is right here. Put anything that you know about it so that the office, because the office will look at this. They look at this often. They will look at your lockbox information, combo code, serial number for the Sentry Lock, the location of the box. This is one thing that is one of my pet peeves. If there is, and I know some handles are the little, like that. You can't get a lockbox on it to stay on it. Somebody can just slide it off and take it. If there's anywhere that if it has that kind of handle, and if there's a wrought iron chairs or swings or something, try to put it on it, or a railing. Don't just lay it there for somebody to take it and move it. One day I spent 10 minutes trying to find a lockbox.
Same.
But anyway.
And usually the showing instructions, you'll identify with the lockbox.
Yeah, and you're supposed to.
By the way, give the recommendations to the seller, your seller, because it's their decision. You say, hey, under these circumstances, you got a front porch railing, like go ahead and latch it there, is that gonna be okay? Sometimes the seller will say, no, I'd rather have them come through my side door entrance.
Right.
Now, if you think the best curb appeal is, you might want to try to suggest the front door, but ultimately it's their decision, it's their house. So you put it wherever. And by the way, if you have 3 or more keys, be mindful of that, could jam up the lockbox, and you want to avoid that. I had six outbuildings in a house and garage, and all these keys. I said, well, it's problematic. So, we want to allow just the house access and, maybe do something else with the location of the other keys. Ever have anybody jammed up on them? Well, have you, Kristen?
Literally Monday.
Okay.
Then I'll cover some alarm instructions and everything. Listing information, listing agent puts you, if you're co-listing with someone else in the office or with a agent in maybe a different exit office, can be, put their information there. The listing date, the expiration date, and the listing price. All this has to be filled out for the front office. They need all this information, okay? Once you have every bit of your paperwork done, you're gonna go over here, check the folder. You don't even have to check that. Then you're gonna go right here and, where's it at? No, I just hit submit. Submit for review up here, sorry. Submit. That sends it down to the front office. It alerts them that, oh, there's a new listing out there, and that way they get you on the sales sheet. And they have all the information they need. They will go over it. If they find anything that you did not get filled out or that is missing, they will let you know. Okay?
Don't fault the staff, by the way. Don't perceive as micromanaging you, but there is a requirement on brokerages to supervise the actions of affiliates. So there is a bona fide reason why, hey, you don't have something matching up,
And for audits too.
Right.
Yeah.
We get unannounced audits. So, and if yours is one of the 5 files that's pulled, you could be fined because you missed something. So we're trying to help each other in that regard. Go ahead.
Okay. So as far as that's,
Want to go through the MLS input
yeah.
form
Now
real
let's go
quickly?
to MLS for
I'm going to highlight some of the important.
So our class is teaching 2 hours, isn't it?
Yeah. Hopefully you're picking up some things that, again, whenever you see an asterisk, by the way, MLS, remarks section, 255 spaces, very limited. Take advantage of how many photos are you allowed? People at Tree CNA know this, up to 30. Now, if you have a starter house, 1,100 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, you probably are not going to have 30 photographs of the interior and outside grounds, right? Here's the suggestion. Here's the suggestion is to anticipate who the buyer might be. They might be interested in the Greenway 2 blocks away. Recreational area, they may be interested in the MTSU that's a block away. Take
That's real smart.
take pictures of that and those kinds of things. And also further describe, there's white space underneath the photographs. That's where you can go ahead and embellish. And Risha said the highest percentage of the decision to buy is the emotion. They fall in love, not just price per square foot, the value. It's really these other things. So use the adjectives: cozy fireplace, wood burning, pastoral setting with nature, after a long day of work, watch the wild deer or whatever. These kind of things really help that emotional. Go ahead.
All right, you're in MLS, you've got to put your listing in. Where do you go? Go to my page up at the top. Then you're going to hit add or edit a listing, okay? Click on that, and it's going to bring up this. Of course, I'm in Lucky, so he's going to get in trouble if I do anything wrong. So this, I can view, here I can view everything that is active of his or coming soon's under contracts, expired, everything, okay? But what we're doing is we're putting in a new listing. So I'm gonna hit new listing. To add, oh, this is that new, got it. This is about condominiums. You put it under residential now. Property type. Is it residential? Is it land, lots, and farms? What type of, is it? This one is gonna be residential. MLS area. These are the ones I never remember the numbers on, but thank goodness.
Let's say Rutherford County is,
We're north, this is gonna be north, actually it's North Murfreesboro.
well, let's say Murfreesboro, north side, area 21.
21, North Murfreesboro up there. Okay.
How would you know the area?
You
Can you look it up on the tax records? Or how would you?
Look up tax record, looks it up on the map.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's on tax
I
record,
mean-
it should be under district/ward.
Yeah, it should be under there. You're gonna have to have that copy of that, tax record anyway, because you need the names for other things, so make sure you always print out a copy of it.
That's where you
put
get
all
the
your
deed book
paperwork.
and page. By the way, there's no instrument number for Rutherford County, there is Davidson County, Williamson County. Remember, the tax record has that.
Listing agent's gonna
That's where you
already
get
put it
the
there.
lot number, subdivision names. Tax ID number is a good one to put on listings and also purchase sale agreements. Get that off the tax record if it's not already contained in
Alright,
the
we are
MLS.
selling, street
But really,
number.
Rutherford County and Davidson County are the only ones that are gonna be split up into different sections. I know that there might be some that are.
Davidson County does have an instrument number, that was added about 3-4 years
Well,
ago.
Davidson County's like Rutherford County, you pull it up on the MLS, you can search all the different sides of Davidson County. so
Yeah.
it's-
Mhm.
But like if you were to have like. a
Area
listing
1
in,
through 8, I think it is.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head,
Right.
but like if you have something out in like Bedford County, it's just, you click
Bedford
Bedford
County.
County.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Mhm.
By the way, everything that's in blue is required. You have to have something in that space. If it's black here, like owner's last name, you don't have to put the owner. I never put the owner's name in there, never. Okay, so list price, we're gonna sell this one at $500,000. I can't see if I got enough. Was that million? It doesn't matter. Co-listing agent, if you're co-listing with somebody, you do here and bring up their, you can search and bring up their information from there. Street name, so we're selling 2212 Tomahawk.
Okay.
For $500,000, is that okay?
Oh, no, it's not, way over that, I'll tell you that. Going to put 260 now.
Well, hey, if I get $500,000 for you,
Yeah, can we quickly get to all the
yeah,
main sheet? with that?
I do, but I have to have this.
Basic, you know.
Yeah, I've gotta have this. Tax info, you can look it up. It's gonna go find it for me, select this property, right there it is, okay? Now, you save as incomplete at this point, save as incomplete. Now, we can go to view menu. Now we're gonna look under here for, I gotta scroll down, incompletes. It should bring up the one that we just insert. It should bring up the one that I just, yep, there it is, okay? So click on that right there in that little circle, and then you can hit edit. Now's where the fun part, you get to enter all this information. Like I said, if it's in blue, you have to, no, I'm not taking a tour. If it's in blue, you have to have a value or something answered right there. And I'm not going through all these, but construction, what type is it? Is it all brick? Is it vinyl siding? Whatever. You've got to have all this information. You're going to get that when you go list the house anyway and take pictures and everything.
Many times you do that on site, but frankly, if the folks are tired, it's something you could take back with you and fill in. And matter of fact, there's so much detail on here, you're not going to have 100% of the time all the answers.
Right.
You let your seller know before you leave that night. Hey, there's some really detailed stuff. I don't know if you got a gas pack on your heating, if it's all electric. I mean, it's okay if I call you in the morning or something to make sure any unanswered questions, you know, because I find that oftentimes is necessary. And you'll see when you go through the whole sheet here, how detailed it is.
Like I said, construction, the type, floors, basement, the type of basement, garage spaces. So I'm not going, here's the dimensions. The living room, kitchen, bedroom 1, which is usually the master. Those dimensions you have to have in here, okay? Bedrooms, main, bathroom, you've gotta have those dimensions, okay? The
Unlike
rest
East
of them, you don't
Tennessee.
have to, but it's really helpful.
You're only able
I
to
would.
put,
Yeah, but I mean, I don't wanna measure the room and then be off by something and be held liable for it.
That's why you get it professionally measured.
Yeah,
that'd be the ideal.
Get
You
it
have a marketing
professionally
plan that maybe one of your higher commission splits provides an appraiser who's doing measuring on the side, $70 or whatever, and take the liability off the seller, off of you and brokerage. So that'd be a thing to consider. The attorneys for MTAR strongly recommend the Scholler and Smiths not to measure the finished total square footage because the liability we would be taken upon. For years, it was just the opposite. For years, agents were told tax records are notoriously inaccurate, and therefore you need to go ahead and agents measure your own. Those of us doing it back then, we hated doing that. You get these 2 and 3 level properties. As you already know, to get total square footage, how does the appraiser measure a second and third level? Did you know? Those of you who already know, the first level, they measure from the outside. So there's variance. If you got an exterior vinyl, you may have 6 inches, but you have a brick exterior, you got the thickness of the brick, you got 2-inch airspace, you got a 1-inch tieback insulation. Do you know if it's a 2x4, which is really a 2 by 3.5 inch, or is it 2 by 6? So on the second and third levels, what the appraisers do, and what we used to do, is measure the interior of the second level, the rooms, and then guess what additional do we need to add for square footage. But then you factor in, appraiser's not going to go anything other than a minimum of 7 feet ceiling height. Sidewalls, for years, we had to deduct if it was less than 5-inch sidewall. Now they go down to 3 and 3.5 because you could put a desk and a computer, and there's even though the ceiling is going up like this, it's still a usable space. It's really good. But see, there are a lot of variables like that. So be grateful that we don't have to measure for total square footage purposes. But ideally, where do you get that? Ideally, the window drop box of getting the per tax, if it thinks it's accurate, or prior appraisal, or seller provided, or professionally measured. But don't check off agent measured for that purpose, for the reasons we mentioned.
Yeah, the big thing, like what you said, is the
Yeah.
elongated
Right.
ceilings like that. And it hits a certain point, you're talking, there's some rooms where you're adding an extra 110 square foot, and you can't count that.
Right.
So, they get that.
So again, I'm not going over through everyone, but Christian, to answer you, it may not be required in here, but are you doing your client justice by not putting that in there? Put as much information as you know, because
I agree with
it's
that.
going to help sell
You got
the
a
home.
fiduciary responsibility to represent the best
Some
interest of
people
the
will
client.
do a search on, oh, do they have a gas stove? They may search on just that. I only want a gas stove. I'm not using electric, you know.
By the way, we
Put as much-
recommend, some brokers will recommend the ultra conservative approach. You're only allowed to put dimensions that include by foot. And unlike East Tennessee, you put the number of inches, 11 inches or 1 inch, in addition to 12 feet and 1 inch. There's some brokers who say even if it's a 12 feet, 11 inches, round down because of liability reduction. No, we're all taught to round up if it's 6 inches or more, round down. And that, I would think if I was a seller, I would have a stronger argument. Stronger argument if you were my listing agent and my rooms had 11 inches and you're putting the lower figure, I'm saying, hey, that makes my house appear smaller, Judge. This agent is not doing what is commonly should be a practice that everybody learns in elementary school. That's the way I would argue it. I think I would have a stronger argument. So round up or down if you're not using a professional measurer.
Once you get everything filled out, you've got a couple options here. You can either save it. When you hit save, it's automatically live. It's in MLS, okay? So don't do that unless you're ready. And if you have any blue section that is still blank, it's not gonna let you save it anyway as active. It's gonna do it inactive.
And please don't regurgitate a previous listing by another agent. Some people get lazy, not in our office, I don't think, but they'll take the interior room dimensions or school zones. Years ago, Thompson Square, I found out for 2 years preceding my listing, the new listing, I checked with the transportation department, Walter Hill. Hey, we haven't been zoned for that for 2 years. I called Candy, every listing agent for the previous 2 years was regurgitating the wrong school information. I'm thinking, golly, any one of those homeowners that bought could have a really good case against those brokers who didn't fail to take the reasonable exercise skill and care of checking that out. So be careful about those kind of things.
I have a question. Could you touch on, in the private remarks, where it says buyer or buyer's agent to verify all pertinent information? I know it's my job as a buyer's agent that there are things that I need to find out from my buyer that even if it's on the listing, I need to double check and make sure. But is that just like a listing agent just trying to get out a listing, things that are?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, I think it's good language. It's a further disclaimer. Mr. Judge, I know this complaint has come forward before you. In addition, MLS has that pre-printed language. All information is believed to be accurate, but cannot be guaranteed. Now, also, furthermore, we tried to implore everybody to say, hey, if it's important to the buyer and buyer's agent prior to submission of offer,
They need to have it right.
they need, and that includes any data. It could be school zones, it could be room dimensions, and I think that's CYA. So there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's probably a good idea if you got space.
He's talking about these two sections. One, it says public remarks. That will show up, when you're printing out your MLS sheet for your buyer. If
You can see that on our website.
Right.
Any of those search websites.
This is what they see, okay? The private remarks are what the realtors also see. So if you don't want a buyer to see it, make sure you don't put it up there.
Agents notice the 4% to buyer brokerage commission upon acceptable offer within whatever, or a bonus of $1,000,
Yeah,
whatever those kind of things are.
bonus, Definitely do that.
I have a quick question. What is the best practice? Because I haven't really gotten a straight answer. I get half that say yes, half that say no, so I have no, So what is the best practice? If, let's say, they have, their garage is completely central heat and air, it's drywalled, but yet they still park their cars in it.
Can't count it.
You cannot count it.
That's
If
what
if there's a garage door, you can go.
I-
Now, if those garage doors have been taken out, completely walled in, there's just a man door, and it's used for living room,
Like
and
a
it's
space.
heated, then you can count that as square footage.
Right.
But if
That's
it's
right.
the garage doors, car garage doors, no, you can't.
Okay.
I have a listing right now, and that listing, another agent with another company had that listing for over a year. They didn't get it sold. I now have the listing. They had it listed as a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. When I went and looked at the house, one of the bathrooms is actually out in the garage, and it is walled in and separate. But there was no heat and air out there, none. So I had my buyer run heat and air into that bathroom so I could call it a 2.5 bath. But I don't think she could have legitimately called it a 2.5 bath when there was no heat and air in that bathroom. Am I wrong or right on that?
Well, it's got to be a permanent heat source.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it's ducted in and so forth, and if everything else is finished, what problem you come into is, I had one in Indian Hills, an agent called me on and said, hey, 900 square feet. They did everything except it was not heated. They ran out of money, which is why they wanted to sell. And in Indian Hills, nice property. I said, well, unfortunately, you can't count that 900 extra square foot. The seller's going to be upset by not being able to. I said, well, why don't you suggest spending a few $100s to go ahead and add a hotel motel unit to add? And they said, I don't have money. Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to just use the lower square footage. But then you go ahead and say in the realtor remarks or remarks section that everything's finished off except, whatever, and that square footage is not counted in the total square footage, so that people know there's extra value there. I'll tell you, I learned something. This cottage in Christiana, the folks finished off the upstairs bedroom 2 level, but it only had 6 foot ceiling. I knew that. I told homeowners, I said, you already know this because I have 22 closings with them, but everything was finished off. But I said, because of that ceiling height, I think your appraiser's probably giving a prorated share value. I can't use it for total square footage. but, you know, maybe 50% value or something because you spent a lot of money. And lo and behold, I had the opinion of a licensed appraiser saying, I'm sorry, but the way I would do it, if I had that appraisal on that property, I'd have to view it as a closet space, extra storage space. She said, really? Even though it's painted and carpeted and everything else was done, so even I learned something that there was not as much value given on that, so. Does that help?
So it has to be central AC or heat in a room?
It's gotta be a
Windows?
permanent heat source, you got baseboard heating, it can't be a, you know,
It can't be like a
It can't
plug-in.
be plug-in wall heater.
Plug-in.
Now, it
Or a
can
space
be
heater.
one of those, oh God, window units that plug.
yeah, like a hotel motel
As long-
unit.
Yeah, but as long as it's fixed.
Technically, it doesn't even have to be air conditioned, there's houses that don't,
Yes, heat.
are not air conditioned, that could still be kind of a permanent heat source. Now, the lack of air conditioning, will that hurt buyer's estimation of value? Yeah, but as far as accountability, I actually had one, I had to give an exception. Civil War era built house, didn't have any ducting, anything like that, was using the wood burning fireplace. I said, this is really a unique situation. I had to call Real Tracks and somebody else, attorney. They did make an exception. I said, there's gotta be a way you can list the property, because the way, with your rules, you can't even show any total square footage, finished space. Well, good point. They had to check and get back to me, and sure enough, they allowed an exception. And, but further described, you know, in the data sheet, what was going on, so people know.
I'm under contract with a house in McMinnville right now. It's an underground house,
Okay,
and the only heat source is two wood burning stoves.
okay.
There's no air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
But with what my buyer wants it for, that's fine. He doesn't have a problem with that, and it's a cash deal, so it's not a big deal. But I was wondering if we had to go through FHA or something like that. There's no way that would go FHA or anything else.
FHA, VA, RD, problems.
All right.
THD.
So once you got it all, you can either save it, cancel, which we're gonna do. Save as active. Well, actually, if I hit save, it's just gonna save it because I don't have all the information. Save as active or save as coming soon, okay? That means you got all your, I'm just gonna hit save. No, I can cancel, we're not doing all this.
Buyer financing, you're gonna have some sellers that say, lucky I know my house only has 3 sides that have gutters and downspouts. I don't wanna spend the money to do the front. And that's gonna be problematic. It's gotta be all or nothing for VA, FHA approval. If you have that situation, then I have one in Old Woodbury Pike, 6 outbuildings and that kind of house. I said, Chuck, as long as you know, in the MLS input form, you're looking for a cash buyer or a conventional loan buyer, and that's the only way it's gonna be doable. And therefore, you need to be aware, Mr. Seller, that there's fewer buyers. But that's how you do, use the realtor remarks to further describe it, what you.
Okay, so now you've got your listing in, you need to add your photos and any forms that you're gonna upload. To do that, go back to my page, go to Media Manager. All right,
We'll be finished up soon.
Yeah, problem.
It's okay? We just have a few more minutes to finish this off?
I'm gonna add something with what you just said. Before I save it as active, I won't save it as active or coming soon. I'll save it as.
just save,
complete.
just hit save
Just hit save, because I want my photos in there
before.
it goes active, because with
Yes.
a lot of what I have set up for some of my clients, where as soon as something goes active that they're interested in, it comes to me
And it doesn't have a photo.
and it has no photos.
True.
And so I don't want that, I don't want my listing to go active to somebody with no photos. I want the
Right.
photos in there, so.
Right, so you can hit just save
Please
instead of
remember
save as
that.
active.
What do most people in the public, when they see no photo,
They don't wanna go
they just
look
skip
at
it?
Yep.
So thank you for bringing
There
that up.
are very few buyers that wanna go see houses without.
And by the way,
They're
don't make the mistake that some agents do. They'll take a picture of what they think is the strongest feature of the house. They'll take a picture of the master bedroom and put that as the front photo.
I'll show
I
you.
always have.
What's the public think? What's wrong? Does it
What's
have
wrong
no-
with the outside of the
no
house?
curb appeal or what?
Yeah. All right, so once you go into Media Manager, look for your inactive or whatever. Here it is, Tomahawk Trace. Now to put your photos, see this little blue, these numbers here, and they're in blue. Photos. So if I click on that, 0, it's going to bring up where I can add up to 30 photos, okay?
Did you realize the way Trek views this, if you've got your own personal website, if you put that website for further information, call listing agent or go to website, whatever, they view that as, the public has access to Realtracs too, right? They don't get as much detail as what we,
Right.
they view that as a potential solicitation
You can't
of
solicit.
others. So don't make that mistake of putting that information in the remarks section. You follow me? Now you can put that in realtor remarks, I want to see from other agents.
I'm glad you
That's how they view that. They were finding agents who put their,
We
that
have
kind
a-
of,
Yeah, we had about an hour-long discussion about that with, Realtracs Advanced, with, Joanne Hensley. Was
Okay.
talking about that. She was saying, do not, she said, at all costs, unless there's a virtual tour with it, leave your website off of it.
I got remarks section.
Yeah.
But what about under like the documents section?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
that's okay.
Jeremy, you
Yeah.
got on there. Okay.
Can you please do that and then send it? Do it between the 150 and 250 range, and it'll be great.
Okay, what I did was I just clicked in that space, that box right here to get to any pictures that are on your computer. And then choose which ones, and if you hit open, it's gonna take them over there.
Please make sure they're the right pictures too.
Okay, what is it? It's got them right here and it's starting to pull them in. Okay, it did not pull them in, did it? Oh, I may have not had authorization. If it detects that it may be a royalty type photo or something, oh, there we go.
Well, another mistake some agents make is they'll use a photograph by the previous listing agent, the photograph they took. No, you need to get, written permission to do that. The other mistake also is, if you take a picture of the front,
Oh, that's a
or if you
video
have a
anyway,
professional
that's
photographer doing it, if your yard sign is out there and your name and cell phone can be seen in that front picture, again, the way Trek views this is, it's the same thing about the personal websites. So don't have that information.
Take your sign
Actually-
out of the yard and then.
Well, just go with the generic, without
Well,
your
you can
name.
cut that out of the picture.
Actually, these two are videos, that's why I didn't take it. So
yeah.
anyway, click on them, it'll bring them over here. Then, it's just that if you, click on something and hold it, and then you can drag it around and move them around. That's how you get your photos in the order that you want them, okay? I'm gonna actually go back and see if I can find the old, just closed.
Now, while she's doing that, if you have a property that you anticipate more than one offer coming in as a hot property, then the suggestion would be in realtor remarks, you say showings will be allowed during this 5 days or whatever. At the end of that period, any and all offers will be responded to within 24 hours by the seller. Recommend highest and best offer. And therefore, that precludes another step for the seller to be fair. If you got 5 offers and you're not forced, the seller's not forced to use the form, multiple offer notification form under TAR, but you say this is one option available, do you want to go that route, or you may want to go with this recommendation. And that's when I had the 30 written offers and one or 17 written offers. I did that, and the seller was so grateful because each of those cases I said, would you have taken the first offer that was submitted? Yeah, because it was even more than the full list price. Well, others were even higher. And they didn't necessarily go with the highest because it wouldn't have appraised if that was a contingency. But you and I are obligated to try to help our sellers to say what is the likelihood of it appraising. And in one case it was 8,000 higher because there was additional sales that couldn't help it. From the time I did my CMA, it listed, and then a week later there were 2 closings that could be used. 10,000. So that's how you do it. Not the 50,000 above. There's no way, heck, it's going to appraise. But again, this market we're more normal time period. So as far as offers, single offer review. But if you have multiple offers, you might want to consider that same approach.
When you put your photos in also, you'll have a chance to write a comment underneath it about that. I know you've looked at some, and up at the top it'll say master suite, ensuite, or whatever, or it may say guest bedroom. That's where you put that information in as well, okay? Now, back here, See the documents, you got your zero. You click on your zero, it's gonna give you the option to add any documents. You click on this, it's gonna pull up all documents, the things that you need to put in. Your property condition disclosure, your confirmation of agency, the disclaimer, if they've had a survey, put that survey in. If there's lead-based paint, if it was before 78, you got the lead-based paint, put that in. Mold disclosures, he was saying about it, if the seller wants to, advertise special features and they type up something, go ahead and put that in there. What else? The septic permit, a lot of times, go ahead and put that septic permit in also. This is gonna save you a headache, especially if it's one that has 120 something showings and 33 people, agents call you and say, I need that property condition disclosure, and you gotta send it out
By the
33
way,
times.
that's what they used to have, they still have it, they had a quick packet that other agents can go ahead and pull up on the same.
Yeah, I have not actually done that one, but Greg, and I think he teaches that in the
Yeah,
Dotloop track, class.
It's the quick offer.
Yes.
The quick
that's
offers
right.
with it, yeah.
Also, if you're a high volume producer or you work another job, and I do this full time, I pick up my phone all the time. But put offer instructions in there, because there's nothing worse than having somebody that wants to put an offer on a property and you don't know what the heck, you don't know where to send it to, you don't know who the seller's closing with, you don't know if there's any lease items with the property, you don't know who's gonna be holding the earnest money. So if you have offer instructions or you pick up the phone all the time, just make sure that those are available, because I've worked deals with other listing agents that work other full-time jobs, they do this on the side, and they make if that offer instruction is there, it makes the beginning process a lot easier, which we all know that's the most.
You can put the compensation agreement in there, that way, you were asking who does it, that's why I do it, I put it in right there, that way it's there for the buyer's agent. Do not put your listing agreement in it, do not, you don't want anybody to have privilege to that information. Anything else on those?
Any questions?
When you're filling out the listing, is there a form that you can print off that they can fill out to help you? That way you're not having to ask them every single question.
Can't you do that? Wait a minute,
Like, what do you
Go back, let me go back.
Like when you, maybe you don't know if they have a wood burning stove or if it's HVAC.
some of that will be on the
I was
property
gonna say,
conditions.
if have them fill out the PCD first, then that's
Some
what
of
I
that's
would
gotta
do.
be on there, and, hold on.
Cause there's a part on the property condition disclosure where it says items to remain with the property, it'll be like oven, or oven range, garbage disposal, and it'll go through a list of all things like that.
That's where, again, you want to be specific.
Yeah.
They may have a refrigerator in the garage, one in the one in the house, 2 refrigerators. So put, Samsung refrigerator.
I've seen it too.
So in Real Tracks, there's a place that's got,
Okay. Under listing forms, it looks like. Under my page.
Yeah, that's it.
yeah.
See, I don't even like on the purchase sale agreement, when I teach that contracts, the pre-printed language says all appliances, but that's even kind of arguable.
There it is. On your
Built-in,
listing
well, what's
form.
built-in, slide-in, so, be specific on what remains, it's not uncommon. Although HUD, did you realize, no HUD has, kitchen appliances that are
Right,
part
and
of
if
it.
there's no kitchen appliances, it won't go to FHA. FHA requires a dishwasher and a stove. If there's no dishwasher or stove,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, I believe FHA does require that stuff to be there. Refrigerator.
Unless it's a HUD foreclosure.
Yeah, unless it's a HUD foreclosure. A HUD foreclosure, it can be in any shape or condition, and FHA will finance it.
Selling broker, that's the buyer's agent.
Yeah,
Well,
fun fact for HUDs, FHA will finance.
internet
it.
is not letting me pull up. Did you say?
Then you have to do a-
Okay, you got it.
I thought you were
Okay.
looking
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
that's, you have some other,
No,
Doug,
any
there's a
other
problem.
questions? Hopefully this was of value to you. If you have any other questions, Becky or I will stay a little longer. And
then it's market it, and sell.
that's
sell,
another topic. Marketing is,
sell.
you're running your own business, and your seller should have an idea of the selling points that differentiate you and what you agree to do. And again, under promise, over deliver, if you will, and you'll get more referrals. Anytime you get a compliment, the compliments come at this point in time, listings started. And then during the period from contract to closing, if you get, hey, thank you so much, I didn't even understand kind of this buyer financing requirements or whatever, and you really helped me through this. Hey, thank you for noticing. I work really hard to please my clients to such a point where they want to enthusiastically refer me to their friends and family. That's how I plan to work to build up my business. I appreciate you giving my name to everybody that you feel I can help. Also, after closing, the 30 days after closing, as a follow-up, they're usually excited about their house and ask for referrals. And that's how I build up my business. I'm not a native of the area. So, all right. Did I answer all questions? Do you have any others? Was this valuable to you?
Yes.
Oh, good. All right. She got into marketing as a different category, just like Jacob found. He took his first commercial listing. You know, LoopNet, CoStar is a different type of process in addition to RealTracs, whereas you decide, you know, where you want to advertise, and whether or not you want to have a professional stager, measurer, photographer, or whatever. And this is why there's disparate treatment on commission. Oh, I'll go ahead and advertise in Nolensville Williamson AM paper. I don't normally include that in my 3% listing side commission, but I'm willing to do that. If you're asking me, your house is in Nolensville, I'll get it out in the Franklin area, but it's going to cost that much extra. I'll go ahead and agree with you, 3.5% on listing side, that marketing plan. And 3%, we want to have competitive offering on buyer brokers to bring buyers. Or reversed. You know, I've had 5%, 5%. Church listing and work trace with commercial application potential or whatever. Land, sometimes you have higher than 6%. But it's negotiable, and so you develop your own marketing. But the time to think about it is now. What kind of things are you going to offer to do by way of marketing? And think through it now rather than the first time you get it. You know, could you see me, Jacob, in 30 minutes? You know, and it's not a family member or something. So does that help? But that's a different topic. All right, you have a wonderful week. And by the way, don't forget tomorrow, if you have a chance, come in 9 o'clock, 1 hour. Tax tips for realtors.